Guys online. How are you? Yes. I'm ready. Hi, everyone. Yom Tov, everyone. We have everyone, please. We have to get on our way. Everyone, please take a seat. Tonight is going to be a very special evening. It's a special evening. We can get everyone settled down. I'd like to ask everyone, please settle down. We're going to have an awesome evening tonight. I would like to welcome each and every one of you. We're Matzah Yom Tov now. We're at the conclusion of the great Yom Tov of Yud Kislev. Sof Kislev. It's one long Yom Tov. This incredible evening. We're all happy you're here. It's going to be a beautiful night. It's going to be a night to connect on the deepest level of our souls. What is really close to what is really super and special, unique tonight. We've had so many awesome musical events and concerts here at Mayan. Tonight is super special because it's our very dear Josh Eber, is right behind me. We all know the story. We all know the story of the Chassid Reb Shmuel Munkes, who was once hanging outside the Alter Rebbe's door, a room, and they asked him what he's doing there, and he said that in front of a shoemaker's house you have a shoes hanging, and in front of a butcher's place you have a pulka, a thigh hanging on. Just people should know what is being sold in the store. Josh should be hanging outside of Mayan. Maybe by the end of the evening we'll put him up. He's our so much our product over here of Mayan. He made his way through the center. Even before the center was an official center located over here, he studied with me and the Mayan people. Literally hundreds and hundreds of hours of Ceders. When no one else was in the class, it was Joshi and one other, I should say, what's her name? Bracha Finkelstein. Maybe we're the two only ones awake, gobbling up the Chassidus. So this is really awesome to have our very, I don't call you alumni because this is Mayan and Joshi are just unified at the hip, at the core. So l'chaim lebracha. Tonight is going to be a real night to just let ourselves into the world of the soul, the inner world of light, of godliness, of connection, of love. Very, very powerful moment. So, and a Mashiach moment. L'chaim lebracha. We'll continue the Fabrengen. We'll talk a little. We'll sing a little together. We'll have an awesome time. Please sit back, enjoy. Let's keep everyone's. Let's keep the talking. If you need to talk, please go outside so that we can absorb the music and the evening. Thank you so much. Put your phones on vibrate. Give me a few minutes. I mean. I'm into the dim. Light from
a little less gashmias to look at. You know, you're all so beautiful. Okay. My name is Josh Engelson. For now, this is Ceders of Lebanon of LA for this show and maybe a couple other shows, but these guys are upstanding musicians on their own. We have Eliyahu Kraus on the bass. We have Shua Grossman on the cajon. I'm gonna be on the guitar and the mic, as you can see. Stating the obvious. Maybe I'll get a little less obvious soon with the music. So yeah, so the rabbi was like saying, like, wow, you know, you started out here and this is where you learned Ceders and everything, and now we're back, and I'm so grateful. It's so true. But there was like, I really started out in Pico, and it was like real, you know, Russian underground. He would take over Beis Betzalel at night. We would sneak in there. And the cool thing about Rabbi Wolf, which I loved as a kid, was that he just had no cap. He had no limit. Like he didn't have a shear that was, first of all, like anyone coming from outside, like you know Tanya, but you don't know like Torah Or and all that stuff. And he would teach these things which were very deep and mystical, and he would just go until he finished, and he, you know, take every word and translate it. And sometimes it was 2 hours, sometimes it was 4 hours or 5 hours. And it was a little bit more of an experience at the time. Maybe you call it like makif, like he exuded an energy and it was in the air, and you went home like elated if you just were open to it. So that was really special. And then here I feel like he, you know, this is like his keli, like this is his home, his vessel for everything. So it's like everything almost compartmentalized a little bit. So we have these events, and then we have some Chassidus shir, and then we have a Tanya shir. But I started when everything was a little bit more in like a, you know, its original seeds. So that was beautiful, and it really formed a lot of the music that you'll hear tonight. Mirz Hashem. I'm gonna start with some originals, and then we'll get a little funky and do some stuff that everyone knows, but maybe a lot of people know my originals as well. So sing along, clap along. Heft. Pleasant. Or pass it to Shrilly also when you get a chance. So I'm not going to talk too much. Maybe I'll give a little bit about the songs, but hopefully they'll speak for themselves. The song's called Citron, which is like an esrog. And one of the beautiful things about the esrog that we learn is that it grows through all seasons. So one of the reasons we take it on Sukkot is to know that no matter what season it is for you, whether it's winter or summer in your relationship to God, there's always a possibility of growth. In the second verse, if possible, you guys can give me like a...
You'll know.
Can you guys do that for me right now? Bum 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 bum. All right, you'll get 7 if you can count that fast. Yes. A citron hanging on a tree. Wait, everlasting you and me. Take a hit, surviving the truck. Take a hit for I'll last and all the memories. A city made for you and me, for everyone to see. When I'm falling, when I'm falling down, till my feet don't touch the ground. When I'm falling away, but I'm hanging on to something I don't ever wanna leave, won't ever go away. The trees will clap into a song, the hurricanes will sing along. Child dance and apology for everyone. The mountains sing with energy. Yeah, lightning strikes a broken sea. For all time, turning in the mind. When I'm falling, when I'm falling down, till my feet don't touch the ground. When I'm falling away, but I'm hanging on to something I don't ever wanna leave, won't ever go away. When I'm falling away, but I'm hanging on to something real I don't ever wanna leave, won't ever go away. Okay. How's everybody feeling tonight? Yeah. The song's called Me 10 Leaves. It's in Tehillim 55. Who will give me wings like a dove? I'll fly away and I'll land somewhere else. Perch somewhere else. We all feel like that sometimes, I think, so I made a song about it. Gotta make this scene. I gotta go, step into the race. Gotta jump into the small things, jump into the ditch. Gotta run, can't hide, gotta be today. Up to twist, I'm getting it in older. Can't touch me because I'm a spiritual soldier. I'm a soldier, riding on the path, riding on the path, yeah. I'm a soldier, leading on the way, hey, hey, leading on the way, hey, First man was on a gifted path, then the snake came, bit him on his track. He wanted to know about the good and the bad, but then the bad became mixed in him. Hey, I won't tell you if he's right, if he's wrong, but I'll tell you that the fight goes on. Like a dove, I'll fly away or find a place of love. Who will give me wings like a dove? All happier in love, all happier in love.
Oh, thank you, thank you. I think that song was already when you were still here. No? Probably. I mean, that's been original a long time ago. Who will give us wings like a dove? Tonight, as I mentioned at the beginning, we need to go very deep. Our community is in mourning today. On the one hand, it's a big Yom Tov, the conclusion of a big holiday. On the other hand, one of our giants, super giants, spread his wings and soared upward. The holy soul of the Shimon ben Harab Menachem Shmuel David Reichik, our rabbi in the Chabad community here in Los Angeles, our beloved rabbi. And it's interesting, today in the morning we woke up to that news. I didn't wake up to the news. I'll tell you like a little bit of a chilling story that happened. I woke up in the morning and I was thinking, lately the first thing I do in the morning, I take a coffee, I'm reading, I have a special book, it's got amazing stories of the Rebbe. And it gives me usually a high if I read the few stories in the morning, and it goes on the order of the parshas. So I open up this book and I just naturally, and I read the story of this week in Parsha. And what does it say? It says Rabbi Shimon Reichik related this story. Again, I don't know of anything. I'm reading. There's a story there. Rabbi Shimon Reichik had a shul together with Rabbi Naftali Stulin. This is years ago when they were still in where the Chabad was on 3rd and La Brea in a shul that's later called Beis Naftali. So the landlord suddenly came to them and told them that he wants to evict them. They should either buy the building or because he wants to sell it. Either they'll buy the building or he has to evict them immediately. So Rabbi Reichik said, he started looking around to start doing some fundraising and see how they could have the money anywhere close to it. Start looking around. They started doing a little fundraising, but it wasn't going too well. And Rabbi Reichik said that he wrote a letter to the Rebbe asking for a bracha. The answer that he got was a very interesting answer. The answer that he got was that you should have hagefen. You should have hagefen, which gefen stands for. Gefen is, like we say, bora priya gefen, wine. Gefen stands for gesund, parnasa, and nachas. You should have health, parnasa, livelihood, and nachas. So, again, I'm reading this today in the morning. Last night, Abba Reichik, Rabbi Reichik's son, was asking me very much to come to a farbrengen that he was doing, and I was just exhausted beyond exhaustion. And I was struggling, and then my Yetzer Hara got the better of me, and I didn't go to the farbrengen. But he was doing this farbrengen, and I was in my head, Rabbi Reichik really needs a refuah shalem. Everybody was davening for him, and so on and so forth. And here I'm reading in the story that the Rebbe gave a blessing for gesund parnasa, and it was a strange answer because he's asking to buy a place, and the Rebbe gives a blessing for gefen. Anyways, what's the rest of the story? The rest of the story was that that Matzah Shabbos, they got a call, Rabbi Stulin, Rabbi Reichik, that the next day there was going to be a funeral from this Russian woman who called them, and they had a funeral of an aunt of theirs who had passed away, and they want them to come. So they came. They never met this family, and it turns out that the name of the family that they went to is the name is Geffen. That's the name of the family. And this woman tells them that you should know they're thank God well-to-do. And the woman went on their behalf to ask, in the memory of the deceased, and so on and so forth, if they can help them out with a donation because they're fundraising for a new building. They needed the building. They have to buy the building. They purchase the building. So he gave them a nice donation, but it wasn't anywhere close to what they needed. So she went back to them, to the family, and said, "Listen here, if we don't raise the money, the entire community, Chabad community, is going to be evicted from their shul, and they're not going to have a shul." So then they only gave them over $100,000, and this was the blessing that Rebbe gave them for Hagefen. And I read this today in the morning, and I got excited. I said, "Wow, we have a bracha for Rebbe Reichik from the Rebbe that I'll be reading over here for Gesund." And so I stood up. This literally happened today in the morning. It's about 7:35. I stood up. I went to my room to get my phone to text Abba Reichik and send him a picture of the story that came across to tell him that we have a bracha for the Rebbe for healing for Rabbi Reichik. And as I pick up the phone to open up, what do I see? The message is that Rabbi Reichik had passed away. So the blessing obviously is there. Our hearts are broken, but on the other hand, I'm thinking in the morning, my first thought, how can we have a concert? The funeral hasn't even happened yet. What are we going to celebrate tonight? So on and so forth. I called Rabbi Shisterman from Beverly Hills, and I said, "Rabbi Shisterman, what do I do? Should we cancel? I spoke to Josh. I said, maybe we can delay it till Motzei Shabbos. We should put it for Saturday night, at least." And Rabbi Shisterman told me, "No way. You're going to do the concert tonight. Rabbi Reichik would, God forbid, he would be so upset at you if you wouldn't do it. And the family would want it to happen. You have to do it." All right? I got a call 2 hours later from Yankee Reichik, Rabbi Reichik's brother. And he said, "I heard that you had a thought of canceling. Don't you dare cancel unless you want my brother to come to you in a dream to yell at you. How come you stopped the celebration for Yutis Kislev?" So I realize it's not a contradiction even. It's not a contradiction because what was Rabbi Reichik doing all along all these times? First of all, anybody knew Rabbi Reichik is not a eulogy tonight? Everybody knew Rabbi Reichik is the beacon of love and concern for a Yid. If you notice the sensitivity in which he literally took such deep interest in each and every one of us. The way he would ask me how I'm doing, and so many times, like I know why. So everybody's okay, your wife, your children. He had such a deep concern all the time for each and every one of us. Such an incredible Hasidic neshama of love, of life, representing everything that Yutas Kislev stands for, that Hasidus stands for. Limitless Ahavas Yisrael, love and kindness and caring. And what has he been doing all these years that he's here? Spreading Hasidus and the light of the Baal Shem Tov. So celebrating tonight in the celebration of the Baal Shem Tov, the celebration of the Alter Rebbe, drawing out our souls to soar higher and to connect to each other and to Hashem, and to the Rebbe, and to Mashiach. And all this is exactly the energy that Rabbi Reichik has given us. And the day, Tanya says, we usually only focus on this on the yard side, but the Tanya actually says it about the actual passing of a tzaddik, of a righteous person, that at the moment they leave the world, all the good deeds that they've done all their life, it suddenly exponentially reveals itself around them in the world, definitely in their city. So tonight we're sitting over here in Rabbi Reichik's energy, and we're reaping the seeds of what he planted over here, all of us, and we're dedicating tonight's event to Ili Nishmas, Rabbi Reichik, Rabbi Shimon, Ben Shimon, Ben Harav Menachem Shmuel David Halevi Reichik. May this be a big schutz for his neshama, and may we dance with him, sing with him already tonight. We don't need no funerals. We don't need anything because, let it be. In today's days, let it be like, when you go to the airport, you go in a door, and it's a revolving door. Let it be like that. And we go in from one side, out from the other side. And he just taps from up there and says that we're waiting for Mashiach, and brings the Rebbe and all the tzaddikim down and all those that need to come back, all back over here. So we dance to the third base of English to Yerushalayim. Now, let it be.
I was debating whether I should say anything. Just because I have a mic doesn't mean I get to talk. I was given the mic to sing, but it is pretty personal for me because Reichik was, I think the Mara de Astra, we could call him, of the Chabad Ceders community. So all I want to say is kind of from my perspective this morning, I think that I gathered a little bit of information, of something to ponder. Rabbi Wolf called me. He's like, "Yeah, we might have to stall it." Rabbi Richie Baruch and Amos passed away, and halakhically, it's like a big thing because it's a whole community that has to be with and mourn. And so I understood where it coming from that angle. And then he said, I'm going to call Rabbi Schusterman, but I want to bring in the factors of can your band do it in a different time and just, gather as much information about it. And then he got back to me with such like a zing and an energy in his voice. Like Rabbi Schusterman said, we have to do it. Rabbi Rachel would want us to do it. And we're going to do it. We're going to have a great time. We're going to do it with our full energy and etc. And to me, it brought me to this place of like really what Yutas Kislev is all about, I think, and what the community here is, because I always remember that one thing that drew me to Chabad from coming from outside more modern Orthodox communities is that like everything was so like light. It wasn't heavy. Like, and you see Rabbi Reichik was a big man. He wouldn't walk. He would like bounce. He would fly. He would like he floated because he was on such a different wavelength. He was the epitome to me of what a chassid looks like. And even though he spoke with such passion, he always kept things light. I don't know if you knew him. He would make anything that you'd come on halachically that you'd think is like such a big deal. He would make it really clear and simple, and he wouldn't like get too nitty gritty about it. And I think it just made me so proud to be raised in this community of LA. And I love that like any chance we get, we lean towards a more Chassidish, warm and energetic approach. So, and I think that's what Yitzhak Kislev is about. Is really finding any way that we can make something, a connection between people that gives us more energy in serving God and connecting to each other. All right, that's my piece. This song's called Play, which is a little bit about the soul coming down into the body. And it's got a little bit of a rap hip-hop vibe. Hopefully you don't mind too much. The 60 men surround my bed. They guard my head when I'm asleep. They arm themselves excitedly to chase the visions I won't see. They're gonna chase the visions I won't see. No, no, no. Oh, they took me to a plot untold. Fulfill your destiny. From the other side, they come to capture me. I thought I never needed more. Just fine with the plain weather. Thought I never needed more. Until they chosen me. My soul migrating, coming, penetrating. There's a body making way for this godly manifestation. All up in my trouble, the troubler is a struggler. Tumbling round and pumping, these worlds are humbling. Get my wit, I'm tumbling as I'm falling with the ball. I'm falling to the game, giving a name. Invested in the brain, but I feel pain and suffering. So I keep struggling, yes, I keep struggling to apply. So fulfill your destiny, and from the other side, they call, They come to capture me. I thought I never needed more. Fine with the plain weather. Thought I never needed more. Until they chose me. Ich bin der Echte, ich bin der Beste. A little thought to take to mind and ponder on the best. Hectic, skeptic, dirty spectacle. The skepticism's honest, but the travesty is yours. Hey, horn rim, and mustache around those. Listen to my flow, connected to my soul. Down and back, I hear drip, hear rap. Mafiosa on me, made in America, applied. Fulfill your destiny, you're from the other side. They come to capture me. I thought I never needed more. Just fine with the flavor, thought I never needed more. Until they chose me, it was. I said, Lord, raise me up from the ground. I've been here too long. I said, Lord, raise me up from the ground. I said, Lord, raise me up from the ground. I've been here too long. I said, Lord, raise me up from the ground. We'll lighten it up a little bit. Time.
Everyone, please have yourself a little high.
Yeah, it's the time. I feel like I'm with my family here, so I hope you don't mind for being Hamish a little bit. Like I'm saying words like Hamish and Ceders, you know. I try to cover it up in my other tongue. I want to. Oh yeah, it's better. I like that. I like what you just did. We should keep it like this. Whoa! Song called Flight of a Deer. Oh, behold, my beloved comes on a mountain covered in fragrant leaves. Oh, behold, my beloved sees retroactive seas. Oh, and I can see my beloved's eyes, but the rest of us covered in dirt. Oh, when I trying to catch her in the rain. It's the flight of the deep, it's the flight of the custom. No matter how much she goes, it's always the will. Flight of the deep, it's the flight of the custom. The shiver and the ship float is always you were me under the apple tree. Oh. And if you promise all the best in the treasure and the glory of it all. Oh, I love, I was going it all away, and it's no matter the deep, no matter the color, no matter how much you know you don't do well, no matter the deep, no matter the girl, whichever direction you go, there's always a way. Oh, 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 oh. Bring it down. The tears of the mountain, she's got her eyes down here, put her back to me. Like a candle in darkness, see the obscurity. Oh. And if you told me all the things that I would have to go through, I wouldn't know. If I say, or if I was born, it's about the deal, it's about the down, no matter how much you know, there's always a way around the deal, it's about the down, whichever direction you go, there's always a way. Na 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 While the rabbi is gathering his thoughts, return again, return again, turn to the land of your soul. Return again, return again, return to the land of your soul. Sing with me. Return to who you are, return to where you were, return to what you are, born again. Return to who you are, return to what you are, return where you were, born again. I said, return where you were born
Return to the land of your souls. That is the essence of the Hasidic experience. Returning to the essence, to return to the inner purity of the soul, the deepest point of our being. Today we celebrate Yutas Kislev, is the liberation of the Shneur Zalman of Liadi, the first Chabad Rebbe. But when the Alter Rebbe was redeemed, he says, I was redeemed on the yard site of my mentor and my teacher and my master, the holy Maggid of Mizrich, Reb Doiv Ber, the second Rebbe of Hasidism, the great teacher of all teachers. The great and saintly Maggid's yard site was Yutas Kislev, and even though tonight is already the 21st of Kislev, we still extend the light of 2 days ago, 19th of Kislev. Here's a powerful story. Some of you know the story, but the whole point of the story is that you don't know the story. And we need to hear the story and deep the story, internalize the story, connect to the story on the deepest level. So the holy Mizrich Maggid, the great saintly Maggid, came to the Baal Shem Tov at a certain time in his life after he was a great scholar, after he was an enormous scholar, but also an incredible Kabbalist and mystic. He was fluent in all the writings and teachings of Kabbalah, the Arizal, the Zohar, even before he became a Chassid. And this story, I think, will really explain what's the difference of mysticism and Chassidus. Why are we celebrating Chassidism? People are excited about learning Kabbalah. Kabbalah is great, but Chassidus is beyond. And you see, the Maggid knew all of Kabbalah, and yet he came and he became a Chassid. But what was the story? Well, he became a Chassid, but after he was a Rebbe already, an old friend of his, who was his partner, a Chavrus of his, who studied with him years ago in yeshiva, and was a study partner, and together which they studied mysticism. He came to visit the Maggid and he wanted to see what's going on in Mizrich. He heard the Mizrich Maggid's got thousands of followers. So he wanted to see what's happening with his friend. He came there and he was observing the Maggid, and he was, he knew him from the younger years, but then he saw the Maggid was spending many hours in prayer. Many hours in prayer, deep meditating prayer. And he didn't understand, because he understood that the Maggid was having in mind all the permutations, all the yechudim, all the unifications of God's name, like they used to do in the youth, but they used to do it much quicker. How come the Maggid is spending hours and hours and hours on prayer? So he asked his friend, he said, Reb Doiv Ber, I don't understand. What takes you so long to pray? Whatever you know in the mystical world, I also know. And yet I pray very quickly. It takes me, an hour and a half. I get through the davening, and you're spending 5 hours from praying. So the Holy Maggid said to him, let me ask you a question. I know that you study Torah all day long. And what's with a livelihood? I know that your wife runs your business. That's what many people used to do in those days. Their wives would run their businesses. And even today, yeah, okay. But they would run, the husband's business. The husband would sit and learn, study. But, traveling once a year, we would have to travel and go to the market, go to the big city where they would gather the goods. It was difficult for the woman. It wasn't so much a woman's thing to do. So the man would travel. His wife would stay home with the kids. And he would spend a month or two out of the house, come back with all the goods, all the merchandise, and then she would be busy working the store and selling it. So the Rebbe, the Mizrich Maggid asked his fellow, he said to him, I don't get it. He says, so, I know you spend about 6 weeks a year traveling to Leipzig. Leipzig was the Vegas in those days where you went for a big show. That's where everybody went to buy and sell. So you traveled to Leipzig in Germany. How long does it take you? He said 6 weeks. He says, and how long? It takes me 2 weeks. I go, 2 weeks I return, 2 weeks I'm there and I'm going through all the stuff and I buy and whatever it needs and then I come back. So the Maggid says, I don't get you. Why can't you just close your eyes and pack your belongings. Imagine yourself, meditate on packing your belongings. You pack your belongings, and then put them all in the wagons with you, whatever you're taking. Prepare the coach, hire a wagon, and in your mind, have in mind that you're traveling to Leipzig. And when you finally get to Leipzig, when you get there, you can, in your mind, walk around the fair, back and forth, speak to everybody, find the verse, find the things, and then buy whatever you need to do. And then you'll converse with people all in your mind. Then you'll take all the heavy boxes, put it in the wagon, and come back, travel back, all in your meditation. And then you'll be back. And how long would that take you? That would probably take you like 2-3 hours. You can get the whole thing done. And here, you're spending 6 weeks of precious time. So he looks at him and he says, "You crazy or something?" He says, "What do you mean meditate? I need the goods. If I meditate, and I'm not going to get the goods, I need the merchandise." So the Maggid said that's exactly the point. You're meditating on mystical unions and on permutations of God's name, but I need the goods. And when you need the goods, you actually have to travel there. It's not enough just to remember phrases and names and permutations of God's name. You need to actually travel. You need to experience it. You need to go there. And with that, the Maggid was explaining what Chassidus is over study of Kabbalah. You can learn Kabbalah, you can read all the maps of the spiritual worlds. You can know all the highways and all the roads, but all it is a map. If you're a saintly soul, if you're an incredible godly soul, and you remember the roads, you remember the spiritual worlds, all the various different chambers in heaven, and when you come down here, you haven't forgotten them. You just need a brief memory, so then you read the map and you can re-experience it. But for most of us, it's been long forgotten. It's been long forgotten. As we become into the physical world, we become so physical, so earthy, we disconnect. To us, the material physical world is very real. The godly is very distant and removed. And unless we're able to reconnect and actually experience it in a real way, and that's what Chassidus is. Chassidus brings heaven down to earth. Chassidus brings the reality that our soul once experienced up in heaven as it was intact and one with God. Chassidus brings no one else but God himself down into your earthy physical experience. And for that reason, we need to learn Chassidus, experience Chassidus, and be one with Chassidus. And that's what we're celebrating tonight. Everybody, we all should realize and understand the greatest, godliest teachings. The inner essence of the Torah was released in the world to introduce the world to Mashiach just about 200 and some years ago, with the beginning of the Baal Shem Tov, and then traveling through all the great Hasidic masters of all the various different groups of Hasidism, and in a very special way, and through the Hasidus of Chabad, in which it makes it reachable and understandable to every single person to digest, to take it in, to become one with it, and to relive the experience of the divine in everyday living, and to really be alive. That's what Chassidus is. Chassidus is really life, to really be alive. Something that's alive grows. It's constantly growing, it's vibrating. Take a look at the Jewish world. See the incredible energy that there is in the world of Hasidim. See the expansion, see the growth, see the explosion. Others are keep tradition alive, keep it alive, but the growth, the explosion, the expansion, the complete encompassing of all of the entire world of the globe. When you're going to watch Hanukkah, menorahs light up the entire world, the energy explode everywhere, the energy of Ufaratsta, that shows that Hasidism is life. It reveals the light and life of our neshama. With that, we're going to continue our evening of song. And I'd like to just draw your attention to just an interesting thing. I'm so elevated now, right now, sitting with you, that I'm almost forgetting about certain things that I need to talk about for this moment. But let's just share this for a second here. Over there is a couple of beautiful boxes. Inside those boxes are fine scotch, which is always went along with Hasidic experience, because Hasidism, it doesn't teach you anything new. It just opens you up. It takes you into your inner core, reveals your inner core. A little mashka helps with that. It opens you up a little, not too much, but just it doesn't introduce anything else into you. It's who you are and what you are. That's why we know when wine goes in, the secret comes out. If a person is a bore and empty, and they take wine, all kinds of vulgarity comes out. But tzaddikim, or righteous people, when they drink, pure secrets come out, the deeper inner self. Those are 9 bottles representing 9 of the saintly tzaddikim, Hasidim, beginning with the Baal Shem Tov. Each bottle encapsulates one of the Rabbeim. And what we're offering tonight is as follows. On the wall are QR codes. Take a moment, use your phone, click into that QR code. You'll come to a auction, a page of an auction. We're not selling the Baal Shem Tov. I don't own the Baal Shem Tov. No one owns the Baal Shem Tov. But what we are selling over here tonight is the merit that every time the Baal Shem Tov is going to be mentioned, from this Yutes Kislev to next Yutes Kislev, any Torah, any teaching, any experience of the Baal Shem Tov, any Jew, when these, either in the walls of Mayan Yisrael or across the world in Australia and Africa, in Brazil and Argentina, wherever they are, who listens to a class and hears a teaching of the Baal Shem Tov, and it suddenly brings tears to their eyes and releases their neshama from a compressed state, that merit is all your merit. Everything that's going to happen over the next year. The next one from the Holy Mezritcha Magid. The next one is from the Alter Rebbe, and then the Mittler Rebbe, and then the Tzemach Tzedek, and then the Rebbe Marash, and then the Rebbe Rashab, and then the Friediger Rebbe, and then the Rebbe. Every teaching we will study from any one of these. If you have the merit, you would like to put in the highest bid on that bottle, get the bottle all year long. You can worm your soul, say l'chaim with it. But know, and unbeknown to you, whenever we're studying, over here with Thursday nights, for instance, hours upon hours, every week we learn the Alter Rebbe. It's all your merit till next year. So this is so you can use the QR code, go in there, put your bid in. Maybe later in the evening we'll do a little each one individually. But for now, put your bids in, and this auction is going to be closed tonight at 11 o'clock. So it's a quick auction to help us in Mayam spread the holy light of the great Hasidic masters. So on the back wall over there, you have a QR code. There's one over here if you want to scan it, and there's one outside. Thank you. I'll mention it. Yes, thank you.
Take this one a little bit slow, and then, but don't be shy to sing along. Hopefully I'll remember the chorus. Shalom, Nafshi mikavli, ki berabi, hayu imati, Odo v'shalom, Nafshi mikavli, ki berabi, hayu imati, Yishma keveya, veyoy veketem Yishma keveya, Where you guys at? Only Batsal is dancing as usual. It's also usual.
Guys are dancing.
Yeah, let's stand up.
We got it covered, ladies.
Ladies are all prepared for the shift.
The man's side is covered by Batsal only. Chevra, my bassist, who seems to be more intelligent than I am, probably, gave me a good idea. If I stand up, maybe you guys will stand up. There he goes. I'm a puppy that I'm proud enough to get alive. Forever is what I'll always be. I'm accepted and I'm proud and I'm together. Forever is what I'll always. Oh, I'm accepted and I'm proud and I'm together. Forever is what I'll be. I'm accepted and I'm together. Forever is always what I'll be.
Chaim, we're just getting started here tonight. Everybody settle down. Right? We're just getting started with tonight's event. Tonight's event is L'schus. Tonight's event is L'schus. A refuah shalema. A complete refuah shalema for Sarah Miriam Bas Sarah. She should have a complete and total refuah shalema taken from the Yad Mami. Tonight's event, also, we want to wish a big mazel tov. We want to wish a mazel tov. Here we are. For the anniversary. We want to wish a mazel tov for the anniversary of Reuven and Shifra Ginsburg. And for their anniversary. And also, we want to wish a happy birthday for Shifra upon her birthday. And there's the wedding anniversary and the Yom Haledes on the 19th of Kislev. May this be a big schutz for them, that they should have infinite years of happiness, because now we're already planning for the infinite. And only mazel and joy and only good things, and a gebench tiyar and a happy birthday. Chaim lebracha. Chaim. One minute. We have a chassan over here, a brand new chassan. Who's the chassan? Dovi Mazel Tov. Hey, Dovi, we familiar. Dovi. Hey, come on, I know Dovi. Oh yeah, Dovi, but that's right. Wow, that's right. Mazel Tov. I saw that. That's right. Mazel Tov. Wow. Oh, Yeshama, the Yehuda. Oh,
Okay, guys, I don't know exactly what Rabbi Wolf was talking about with the whole mashke thing, but it would be so cool to like have a bottle of mashke in your house with like representing the Rebbe. That's just what I see. I'm not sure exactly the whole thing. I'm sure it's like there's a whole concept around it, but I'm calling you guys out. the men, the women. I'm sure the women could also bid on that, right, Rabbi?
Yes.
You don't make a differentiation between men and women bidding? My boys, Dov, Ari, Sroli. Dude, it has the Baal Shem Tov's writing on top of the mashke bottle. You need that in your house. Come on. Okay, I'm gonna play. Yeah.
Okay, I need you guys to help me out over here. Here's the deal. Here's the deal with the mashke here. I have an offer for someone that wants to take all 9 bottles. Okay, he negotiated with me a good price. He wants to take all 9 bottles. I'm just afraid that he has 9 bottles like this. He's just going to want a little bit of the Baal Shem Tov, a little bit of the Alter Rebbe, a little bit every single day. We'll meet him on the street, on the floor outside. We don't want that to happen. So I'm a little worried and concerned of him taking all 9. But if you guys are not going to start bidding on the bottles over here, now let me tell you something. These bottles are truly consecrated to these great Rabbeim, which means we've elevated them. We said, this is Harei Zim Mekudeshes, the Baal Shem Tov. The Baal Shem Tov's energy is in these bottles. Just because you're actually connecting to him, because you're paying for all the teaching of the Baal Shem Tov that's happening this year. So we should really get the bids going on this, or else we're going to have to give him all the bottles, which is not a bad deal for us, but still we want to give everyone else a schus. Huh? There's an auction. Go on the online, buy Q. Oh, give me it. Oh, you know what? Here we are. Every single one of those bottles start off, because we can't give such a schus for less than 4 digits. So they all start off with $1,000 plus 150 because that's the cost of the bottle. So it's 1150. So that's the basic of every single one. Now we can pick them up higher, and that's your bidding. You can tell me the bid, and I'll enter it if you want. But if anybody, so we start with the Holy Baal Shem Tov. You're sitting with that incredible bottle all year long. You can say L'chaim and channel those blessings. What? Oh, so we did it 3 years ago before Corona. No, not last year. 1 second. But we have to hold it. I want to tell you here, it's an amazing thing. The 2 people, there's a few people who bought them. We did it like 3 years ago, and 2 of the there was a few of them that were taken. Then we sold it at one price. We didn't have an auction, and it was actually higher. It was $1,800 a bottle. 2 of the people who took those bottles came over to me in the middle of the year and thanked me and said, one of them told me they got a great windfall of money that year, unexpected to them, and they thanked me and they told me related to taking that bottle. And another one came over to me, told me he had big miracles in his family. He didn't have to tell me that. He told me big things happened for him and his family. Yeah, he needed a big Yeshua, and he got that. So I think there's a big energy in these bottles. So just putting it out there. If you want to bid on the Baal Shem Tov's bottle, on the Rebbe's bottle, on the Alter Rebbe's bottle, these are very powerful. I just don't want to take away the night on bidding over here. We got a bid for $1,200. I got it. Okay. We have $1,200 on the Alter Rebbe's bottle. Thank you. We also have a bid for $1,100 on the $1,150 on the Friediger Rebbe's bottle. But if there's anybody that wants on the other bottles and on those bottles, we can lift it up higher. Rebbe's bottle is sitting over here. It should go for at least $10,000. $1,150 on the Rebbe's bottle. $1,150 every time the Rebbe is mentioned at Maya. Anytime the Rebbe is mentioned at Maya, $1,150. $1,150 going. Anybody want to bid? The bid is going to be open until 11 o'clock, so they can still be outbidded. But now we're not closing it. It's open till 11 p.m. tonight. All right, let's take the music back.
Hey guys, I'm gonna play. I'm gonna take the tempo down a little bit because as you can see, I'm not so well versed in the Jewish songs. But I'm gonna play 2 more songs, a little bit down tempo, and then we're gonna just officially be over it. If you guys wanted to come for my concert, that's what it was. But of course, the jam is gonna continue. Somebody who's not me. So this is my song, and then we'll close up with the altar of the song. The song's called "Somebody Who's Not Me." It's like it's kind of just an ode to feeling like a mission needs to be accomplished, but you don't necessarily want it to be you. Sorry, let me just tune up. Yeah. Somebody who's not me is called. 20 years in space, I've only traveled in time. Trying to find a place to call my home. I walked 1,000 roads, but I will never truly find. When I find the place I'm looking for, heaven will return when we will finally cross the line. Feel yourself connected to divine. First out when you're walking, you could dance the night away. Following the chance we call a day. Yeah, we've been living on the long path, demonstrated on the life beat. And if somebody could change the world, somebody who's not me. Oh, is there anybody out there? Oh, can anybody hear me? And if somebody could care for you, somebody who's not me. Seven wells are dug for 7 patterns in my mind. Trying to find the time to crack the code. 60 men surround me, army majors in their prime. Trying to break the shackles of the old and foolish king. Mountains will be scaled when we will finally start to climb. Feel yourself suspended on the line. First out when you're walking, you could dance the night away. Following the chance we call the day. Keeping it on the long path, in the street on the light beat. And if somebody could change the world, somebody who's not me. Is there anybody out there? Can anybody hear me? And if somebody could care for you, somebody who's not me. We've been waiting on the long path, You look right out of your window, see that the world's on fire. Who's gonna save them all? And if you look right out of your window, you'll see that the world's on fire. And who's gonna save them all? We'll conclude with we could all sing this together in honor of the altar of his emancipation. Okay. Yeah, we got it. Over time. Thank you very much. That was my set. I'm sure we could jam a little bit now, but you're officially released from your Yutes Kislev Verbringen. You can go home and tell your friends you verbringed on Yutes Kislev. Rabbi Mendel Zirkin, shout out. Okay, we'll play another original. One more. Which one you want? Sure, play Shir Amala. This is easy. Same E minor, A. Okay. I'll play this song. I wrote this song at one point, kind of for my brother, I guess. This song's called Shir Amala. You might recognize it from if you pray in the beginning of Ma'ariv, of Arvit. We say this in before we do Baruch. Shir Lemalo, Ine Bochu, Et Hashem, Kol Avdei Hashem, Inula, Shomer Nafshot Chasida, Shir Lemalo, Ine Bochu, Et Hashem, Kol Avdei Hashem, Inula, Shomer Nafshot Chasida. Oh, big brother, please don't lie. Stay free from the other side. Oh, big brother, please don't change. Same face to the very end. But we'll push you marathon, and they push you right on. They push you right. You're on the way into the light. Shield my love. Bochu Hashem, Kol Avdei Hashem, Sinura, Shomer Nafshot Chasida, Shir Lemalo, Ine Bochu Hashem, Kol Avdei Hashem, Sinura, Shomer Nafshot Chasida. Oh, big brother, please don't leave. Stay true to your energy, your big brother. Can't you see? Father plays a game of hide and seek. Well, we'll push you all along on the path of right from wrong. Well, we'll push you right. A candle held up in the night. Shir Lemalo, Ine Bochu Hashem, Kol Avdei Hashem. Inula, Shomer Nafshot Chasida, Shir Lemalo, Ine Bochu Et Hashem, Kol Avdei Hashem, Inula, Shomer Nafshot Chasida. צבי, ונתני בדרך עולם, וראים דרך עוד צבי, ונתני בדרך עולם. And you see if the path is sad for me, and you place me on the path of eternity. And you see if the path is bad for me, you place me on the path of eternity. And you see if the path is sad for me, and you place me on the path of eternity. And you see if the path is sad for me, and you place me on the path of eternity. Yeah. Oh, yeah. It's weird because you guys are all sitting here. I could play more.
Yes, we will play. We'll tell a story.
Rabbi.
It is a Fabrengens. Tell a story again. One of the stories I saw today in the morning. So this is Mashkacha Pratis. So this is what I'll share with you. There was a Vishnitz Chassid. His name was Reb Herschel, Reb Tzvi Hirsch. He lived in Yerushalayim. He was a huge Talmud Chacham. He was a Vishnitz Chassid. Reb Tzvi Hirsch Magid, they called him, and passed away in 1989. Dalet Sivan. He told a story. He was a very private person. Generally, besides his classes when he taught Torah, and he was a very, very, very special man. Other than that, he was very reserved, didn't talk a lot. So people didn't really hear the story from him. But this person who writes the story said he went to meet his children, two of his sons and his son-in-law, and heard the story, and each of them told the story almost exactly of the same. So he verified the truth and the validity of the story. This Reb Tzvi Hirsch had one son before the war. He lived in Romania as a Vishnitz Chassid. He had one son. His name was Levi Yitzchak. He was 6 years old when the war broke out. 1941, the Romanians collaborated with the Nazis. And first there were 140 or something like that, 1,000 Jews that were massacred. And then they relocated another 150,000 Jews. They took them. They marched them off somewhere. I forgot where exactly, Transylvania or whatever. Many of these Jews were killed on the way. Many of them died from starvation. Others died from other illnesses. This Rebbe Tzvi Hirsch had actually two sons before the war. One of them was killed in an accident, and this was a surviving son. He tried holding on to his boy as long as he can, but in the end they were separated. His son's name was Levi Yitzchak, named after the holy saint Rebbe Levi Yitzchak of Berdichev, because this Reb Tzvi Hirsch was an Einakul of Reb Tzvi Hirsch from Lidvorna, one of the great Hasidic masters, who was a son-in-law of Reb Levi Yitzchak of Berdichev. So he named the son after the holy Reb Levi Yitzchak. In any case, this boy was separated, the father, and after the war, the father survived the camps, came to Eretz Yisrael, came to Israel, and he couldn't forget his son, and he was looking high and low for his lost boy, his one and only child, only one who survived the war with him, his only relative. And he was looking and looking and searching and searching and searching and searching. He had other sons. He must have remarried after the war, but at that point, this was his only boy. Searching high and low, checked with every community, looked in every database, wherever he could search, couldn't find his boy. Many years passed, and he lived in excruciating pain because he would always quote this week's parasha. Rashi says that Yaakov never wanted to be comforted because Yaakov couldn't be comforted because there's a decree that when someone passes on, that Hashem made a decree that in order that a person should be able to go on in their life, that you forget. It's not the pain ceases and it like kind of moves away. So our God wants us to be able to live. But when someone is really alive, and it's only told to you that they passed away, but they're really alive, and that decree doesn't exist, and therefore the pain every day is a fresh wound. So he was always telling his close people that I know my son is alive because the degree of pain that I have from missing him is so intense that I know my son is alive. But couldn't find him. And at a certain point, there was a Yid who recommended, he said, why don't you send a letter to the Rebbe, to the Lubavitcher Rebbe, and ask for a blessing? He said, the Rebbe, besides being known for being such a goy and a genius and so forth, is huge. This is what huge in the hidden realm. So he sat down and he wrote a letter to the Rebbe because he was a real believer. He was a Chassidish Yid. He was a real believer. And in the letter he wrote, he started off describing his yichus, that he's a grandson from the holy Berdichever. And he said, because I'm a grandson from Berdichev, I'm a mechutan with Lubavitch. Because we know the Berdichever and the Alter Rebbe were mechutanim and they were very close to each other. So he writes this in the letter, and then he says, Rebbe, I can't bear the pain anymore. I'm looking for my one and only child. I couldn't find him. I'm looking high and low, and it's reaching a point where it's unbearable. And I'm seeking your advice of what to do. Where can I search for him? Is he alive? Where is he? And so forth. A few weeks later, he got an envelope. He opened up the envelope. It was an answer from the Rebbe, and the Rebbe said, I'm going to mention you at my father-in-law's tziyun, and gave him blessings. And then in the end of the letter, the Rebbe writes, regarding your request, the Rebbe says, it is fitting that you search for him in Honolulu. The Rebbe says, it is fitting that you search for him in Honolulu. So in the 1960s, this person from Eretz Yisrael traveled to Honolulu, searched high and low, found his son. His son's name was at that time Jack. Jack had really forgotten anything of his Jewish past. The father was beside himself with joy of finding his son, and the reunion was very powerful. Pained him very deeply that his son was not connected to observance and so on and so forth. But he began teaching him, and they got very close, and the son started taking on certain mitzvahs. Then the son became a professor, graduated, became a professor in Honolulu, and he had a child, and he named his son actually Menachem Mendel. So he's Menachem Mendel ben Levi Yitzchak. And that was a story, and I'm thinking about the story, and I'm thinking that the story is a true story. It's also metaphoric. The function of a Rebbe to help us find our own child that sometimes gets lost. We don't know where the child in us, the believer, the innocence of our youth, the deep, deep, fiery connection we had when we were 3 years old, when we went to Cheder, when we were 5-year-old, and we said Moida Ani with such sincerity, with such truth. God was so tangible to us. As we go older, we go through various different experiences, and sometimes we don't know where our own child is, where our own soul is, where our own essence is. And here is where we come and we have a Rebbe. That's what Rebbeim are. That's what a Rebbe is. He's a Rebbe. How does a Rebbe know? It's not like communication from above. A Rebbe is the essence of all Jewish souls. And he connects to each and every one of us from the essence, from the inner core. So when a father is desperate looking for his son, he knows where the soul is. He knows to check in Honolulu. He can sense it. He knows where he is. And our Rebbe knows where ours. Most of the times he tells us to look inside ourselves. Maybe there's some Honolulu inside of us where our own soul has gotten lost. But that's where we have to search, not elsewhere. The godliness of our soul is buried deep inside of us. Chassidus helps us draw it out, draw the child out, draw Levi Yitzchak out, change Jack back into Levi Yitzchak, to draw him out, to reveal him, to uncover him, so that we can live a godly life, shine our light, our great light to the world. Talking about Rebbeim, talking about Rebbe's, talking about the incredible energy that they possess, the power that they have, the power that they're alive, even if we don't see them, even if they look like they departed 200 years ago. Let me tell you a story that happened in this room this last week, Sunday. My daughter, Baruch Hashem, got married last week, Sunday. And it was a beautiful wedding. It's past Sunday. And the week before that, Thursday night, I always give a class in the Alter Rebbe's Maimorim. And that Thursday night, I had a few airport pickups. My parents came, my in-laws came, my son-in-law and daughter came. So I was running back and forth to the airport a couple of times. And I was hoping to give the class, but the class didn't happen. And I prepared it, but part of it at least. I teach a discourse of the Alter Rebbe. It was a difficult discourse, an expansion on the Zohar called Biurei Zohar. So I did my due diligent preparation, but I didn't get to teach it. And it bothered me. I don't like to leave a Thursday night without teaching Chassidus. Turns out, I said, you know what? The night before the wedding, Saturday night, Motzei Shabbos, I'll come here, I'll teach. No one has to be here. I'm teaching online. Whoever's on YouTube and Facebook can tune in. Got busy. We're busy with the ksuba, with the this, with the that. Didn't happen. Motzei Shabbos. Now it's the day of the wedding. And I'm thinking, you know what? In Yiddish Chassidus, you say, "Five ganze Welt." Five ganze Welt means, you know what? The ladies, they got to do their makeup. There's a makeup lady. She's coming to the house. They're doing the hair. They're doing the makeup. Thank God I'm so good looking. I don't need no makeup. I don't need it. My Strymel needs a little brush here and there, but that's about it. So I said, what do I have to do? I'm coming over here and I'm going to teach Chassidus. And that's what I did. 8:30 in the morning. I set up my camera. I sit down with the book and I start teaching. 2 hours I'm teaching. But I told the people that are tuning in, I don't know who's tuning in. And I told the people, beware, this class is different because my daughter's getting married in a few hours. 3 o'clock is already the wedding, and this is 8 o'clock in the morning. So just in case I get distracted because people are calling me, I'm on call. If my wife calls me or this calls me, I need to be ready. So I might be interrupted. And lo and behold, 5 minutes into the class, my future son, who's now my son-in-law, but at that moment was still future within the next few hours, calls me. He says, can I come to Mayan? Because I want to have a quiet place to prepare for my wedding in a few hours. So I said, well, you can come. I'm giving a class here, so in the main room is being taken, but I can set you up in one of the offices. So he comes, and I set him up in the office, and he's learning. He's looking for a sefer here. I'm teaching the Biurei Zohar. I don't know why, but I had this incredible elated feeling. I'm thinking to myself, this is awesome. My daughter is getting married tonight, and I'm teaching the Alter Rebbe. I feel that energy. And I'm saying it's so incredible. And my son-in-law is also here. It's me and my son-in-law, future son-in-law. He's learning. He's doing his thing. He's in that corner. I'm here. We're learning Chassidus. It was like such an amazing, exhilarating experience. But the thing was, before I started the mimer, I was thinking to myself, maybe I shouldn't teach that mimer, the Biurei HaZohar discourse. Maybe I should teach a mimer about a wedding, the Rushei Chasana, the Sony Memorum about a wedding. And then I pushed it off. I said, man, this is the mimer I have to teach. I don't know why. That was when I prepared for Thursday night. This is the one I'm teaching. I taught, this was last week, Sunday, 2 hours. I didn't get through. These memorum are very long. I got through a page and a half. Last week, Thursday night, I covered another 2 pages. Right after we had Sheva Brachos over here, right after the Sheva Brachos, we sat another 2 hours and continued the discourse. Awesome. Mushka was here filming, right? Mushka, remember? She wasn't filming, but she was tuning in, and it was great. In any case, another 2 hours of Chassidus. And then this past Monday, I went away for 2 days. I was in San Diego. I was in a hotel. And I'm sitting and I'm saying, you know what? Morning, Chassidus, it's Yotes Kislev. Let's learn Chassidus before davening. Hey, I didn't finish that mimer. Let me go to finish preparing the mimer. I take the discourse out and I start reading and I'm getting to difficult territory. It's difficult. I don't understand. I got to break through it. It's like, it's not working. And I said, let me continue. And I'm continuing. And the mimer talks about Yaakov Avinu putting 12 stones around his head. And then I'm reading and he's quoting a passage of the Zohar. And it's talking about my son-in-law's name is Aaron Margolin. And I love names, and I'm always saying Chassidus on people's names. And I spoke on Shabbos Sheva Brachos about Avram and Aaron. But I always love to be able to have an explanation on the last name as well, especially since, when your daughter, whose name is Wolf, suddenly turns around a day later and she's no more Wolf. She has a new name, Margolin. It's like a piece of you like being ripped out. So you gotta you want to find meaning a little bit in the name. So I'm trying to figure out what's Margolin, the whole Shabbos Sheva, the whole Sheva. I don't have it. And I read the mimer. And the whole last page and a half of the mimer is going on to explain Margolin. Margolin. The Alter Rebbe is explaining that Margolin are pearls, and they represent the 12 stones that are around the 12 first recipients of the godly light of the Kisei HaKavod. They're the purest stones receiving radiant godly light. And he goes on and on and on. Now, usually pearls are called Margoliois, but in Aramaic, it's not Margoliois, it's Margolin. And he explains how it has 2 holes like a pearl. Now we better go get a pearls. But in any case, there's string that the pearls go from one side to the other side. It's awesome. And I said, wow. It was just such a moment of a Rebbe saying, you teach me all the time. I'm with you. I know you love me. I love you. I love your family. You're getting married. I gave you dafka this mimer. You taught the mimer on the day of my wedding. It was special. So here, the Rabbeim, they're here for each and every one of us. They're so with us. They're so connected. They're so tangible. What are the chances? I taught thousands of mimerim. I never came across Margolin. I don't remember. But just the day of the wedding, that's the mimer that I'm speaking, that we're learning. This is just unbelievable. So l'chaim, everyone. May you experience light and bracha. Feel Hashem with you and godliness with you. The Rabbeim with you all the time. L'chaim, l'chaim. Thank you.
Do we have already on the base? Yeah.
Here. Sorry with me.
What is he doing? Yeah. Rabbi, we play a song? 7. L'chaim, l'chaim. Oh, he's back. Josh, come. Joshua, you want to play? All right, play one. Jen, see. Play?
Okay, I'm gonna play one more song and then Rav Mendel is going to speak. My holy friend Avram Edry. Sure. You want to just put the bass straight in? I want you to play. No, just for this song. This is my last song. Okay, this okay, right. Give one more round of applause to the band over here. I think they did really amazing. I'm so humbled that Hashem brought me guys who are really good and professional. And it's not easy to play with me because I really shift in my tempo. I go fast and slow and fast and slow. So appreciate you guys. Yes. Okay, play this last song. It's called Infinite Light. I don't know if Rabbi Wolf, is that you, Rabbi Wolf? This song is actually the first song I ever wrote after I started learning Ceders with Rabbi Wolf. So this is straight birthed by the words that the Rabbi Wolf gave to us back in the day. And it's called Infinite Light. I guess the feeling is just infinite light. Ein Sof. When the first time I heard Rabbi Wolf say Or Ein Sof, infinite light, I was very moved, and I guess I just wrote a song about it. I think there's a point in trying to always reach that infinite light. Okay. Sorry, Avram's not plugged in. Well, if you want to listen close, you can listen close to my friend. Play with me. Infinite light leads my soul through the night. Let my soul be alright when it's gone. Infinite light leads my soul through the night. Let my soul be alright when it's gone. What to do to keep my soul right? What I gotta do to keep my soul right? Take my heart and bring it back to me. Bring it back. What to do to keep my soul right? What I gotta do to keep my soul right? Take my heart and bring it back to me. Bring it back. Infinite light is my soul shining bright. Let my soul be alright to know the way. Infinite light leads the whole room tonight. Let our soul be alright to know the way. What to do to keep my soul right? What I gotta do to keep my soul right? Take my heart and bring it back to me. And bring it back. What to do to keep my soul right? What I gotta do to keep my soul right? Take my heart and bring it back to me. Bring it back. The sun will turn to bring you out to the spotlight. I'm letting you walk in my dream. The sun will turn to bring you out to the sunlight. I'm letting you walk in my dream. Oh, no matter what to do to keep my soul right, what I gotta do to keep my soul right. Take my heart and bring it back. Bring it back. What to do to keep my soul right, what I gotta do to keep my soul right. Take my heart and bring it back to me. Bring it back. Thank you very much. That was our set. Thank you, Rabbi Wolf, for inspiring me. Thank you, Rabbi Mendel, for always inspiring me. And get ready to be inspired. You are the lucky ones who stayed for this special event of Rabbi Zirkin speaking over here. Huh? No. Baruch Hashem. Sure.
You're trying great.
have a monitor. Guys still using this over here now? Sure. Something. Yeah, you want to use the mic? You can put it down. You can put it down. You heard me?
I saw.
Oh, God.
Rabbi. Come tomorrow, pick it up or something? Yeah. It's probably better Monday because we ordered special stickers, gold stickers. They're supposed to be ready today. They're only coming Monday. Okay.
We'll see what's.
Yes. Okay. Which one did you get?
So we're at the end. We're at the end of the beginning, because although tonight is really Chaf Aleph already, so the Yom Tov and Yutes Chaf has the beginning of it, as we said, has already sort of moved on to the continuation, which is the Chaf Aleph. Like Eliezer.
Another maybe 20, so it's 1,020.
So anyways, l'chaim, the wishes that we wish each other, as Ayemim writes on Yutes Kislev, is that we wish each other good Yom Tov, L'shana Tova, the Limudach Hasidus, the Darkei Hasidus, the Chosim is the Chosim. And there's a din regarding Rosh Hashanah. The Taz tells us that on Rosh Hashanah, there's a limited time when you could say that on a regular Rosh Hashanah. Regular Rosh Hashanah, we wish each other, L'shana Tova, the Chosim is the Chosim. There's a question in Halacha whether that continues. It's 2 days Rosh Hashanah, so does that continue only till the next day after Tkiyas, or that can continue even to the second night, followed by the next day? So in Shulchan Aruch it says, the Taz holds that this is only a one-day event. So I don't know if that extends to the Rosh Hashanah of Hasidus, like Yutes Kislev, but the import of the bracha and the point of what we're trying to wish each other is definitely something that we could wish each other on a daily basis, on a moment-to-moment basis. So the l'chaim that we should be able to absorb, internalize the energies of Yutes Chav Kislev in a way that it should impact our limud and darkei Chassidus, that it should actually be something that we feel is inscribed in our own soul, and something that we find being identifiable as being something that we sign. So we find in the expression, we say this, say in benching that the first milah that we get, the males at least, the females, the Gemara says, Kamandam Yadamya, that women already have a bris, whatever that means. But the idea is that Shechasamta v'Serena, we're branded. There's a concept being branded with a bris. So when we say Techasein v'Sechasein, so on Rosh Hashanah, that refers to on a spiritual plane that we're asked Hashem that we should be signed and sealed for a good year and a year of full blessings. So likewise, obviously on a Yutes Chav Kislev, similarly, we ask Hashem to be signed and sealed for a good year of learning Ceders and acting Ceders. But perhaps a deeper pshat is to chasim is a chasay means that we should internalize it to the point that number one, it should be something that we inscribe ourselves with. It's the words of our heart, it's the words of our mind, it's the words of our actions, and likewise, it's sealed, it branded within us this message of limud hachassidus and darkei hachassidus, l'chaim l'chaim. So, one of the famous stories that is told, the Frierdiker Rebbe tells us that when the Alter Rebbe was informed on Sukkot that he was the government was planning to arrest him, so the Alter Rebbe made a decision not to allow himself to be arrested. And so they came on Sukkot, and the Alter Rebbe left, or whatever it was. And when they came the second time, or before they came the second time, the Alter Rebbe asked of a very famous chassid, of Shmuel Munkus, as to whether or not he should he capitulate, should he surrender, whatever the words you want to use. So the Shmuel Munkus responded, yeah, he should. So this is at least the way it's quoted by the Frierdiker Rebbe. So the Alter Rebbe says to him, but it's a sakon, it's dangerous. Going into Tsarist Russia or the Tsarist government, you don't know if you're going to make it out alive. So Reb Shmuel Munkus responded in these words. He says, "Memanavshich, bistir Rebbe. If you're a Rebbe, then nothing is going to affect you anyway. It's not going to make a difference. And if you're not a Rebbe, so how did you have the right to take away the pleasures of this physical world from countless of people?" I'm paraphrasing at this part, not exactly the phrase. So this is the story that's quoted by the Frierdiker Rebbe. It's always bothered me, this story, because I never understood, and perhaps I still don't understand fully. Okay, the question that Alter Rebbe was posing was, he doesn't necessarily fully observe his role, perhaps. Maybe that's a good way to put it. So he's asking a chassid knows the Rebbe maybe better than a Rebbe knows the Rebbe. So he's asking his chassid, the prime chassid of Shmuel Munkus, who was a tzaddik, he wasn't, he was a holy man on his own right, to tell him from his perspective, is this a safe thing to do? So that I could understand on some level, but I don't understand, or I'm still struggling with perhaps, what is the answer? So he says Memanavshich. Memanavshich is a Talmudic expression, which basically means whichever way you want to look at it, right? So whichever way you want to look at it, seemingly his answer was you should do it for whichever way you want to look at it. If you're looking at it from the perspective you're a Rebbe, then you should do it because you're a Rebbe. As a Rebbe, nothing could affect you anyway. And if you're not a Rebbe, then how could you take away the enjoyment of Elam Hazah from countless of Ceders? So what's the Memanavshich here? What's the other side? If you're not a Rebbe, then what? Then you should do it because you deserve to do it, to be punished. Like what's the Memanavshich? What's the second side over here? Usually Memanavshich means that from either angle you look at it, then the answer is you should go ahead and allow yourself to be imprisoned. What's the other side? And if you're not a Rebbe, so then how could you take it sounds like he's, saying that you're a charlatan or whatever, but what does that have to do with putting himself in prison? And maybe on the contrary, that's why he shouldn't, because if he's not a real Rebbe, so then it's dangerous, and then okay, so he tried to convince people to live a life that's, very stoic or whatever, try to be a very holy, disconnected from physicality, but does that mean he should therefore be put in a position like that? This has always been bothering me, the Memanavshich. What is the Memanavshich? So, I don't know. I actually asked today because I was thinking about it on this year as well. So I asked Michal Zelickson, and Michal Zelickson he wrote a whole mafteach on he's got a photographic memory. So he has a list of all of the Rebbe's talks on everything. So I asked him, did the Rebbe ever give an explanation for this story of what Shmuel Munkus said? He says, I never seen an explanation. So either that means it's simple, that doesn't need an explanation, or that means it's up for us to try to find an explanation. So, like I said, I'm probably a little bit more confused, or I still am confused to some extent, but I have a certain thought process, perhaps, that maybe will be developed over the next little bit of time. So, firstly, what exactly what exactly is a Rebbe? I mean, we mentioned, mentioned before, the idea of a Rebbe, and the concept of being connected, and the essential, and all those things. We're not going to sit and philosophize it. Just very basic points. A Rebbe is our spiritual DNA. The same way we have parents to give us our physical DNA, a Rebbe is our spiritual DNA, right? There is a Rebbe. There is that spiritual DNA. The concept of an neshama klolos is not just made up by Chabad Ceders. The idea of an neshama klolos is an idea brought already in books of Kabbalah, the Zohar. This concept is it's part of ancient Judaism. So this concept of the spiritual DNA is something which we have already established. So the question is not if there's a Rebbe, the question is who's the Rebbe, right? Who's the Nasi Hadar? I heard a story, not exactly the details, maybe I'm off a little bit, but I heard a story that Rabbi Yael Khan, who passed away recently, one of the great giants of Chabad Chassidim, is giants in many areas, not just in Ceders, but in Nigla, one of the big, real Chuka Oinim of our generation. So I heard a story, either he repeated the story, others mentioned the story that he was once on a plane, and he got to sit next to a Satmar Chassid. And they started talking about, what else are the Satmar and Lubavitcher Chassid going to talk about? Rebbes, right? And the Satmar Chassid is trying to understand. He asks Rabbi Yael Khan, he says, why is the Lubavitcher Rebbe, why do you say the Lubavitcher Rebbe is the Nasi Hadar? Why is he the leader of the generation? Why isn't my Rebbe, the Satmar Rebbe, the Nasi Hadar? So this is how I heard the story. So Rabbi Yael tells him, he says, let me ask you a question. He says, when your Rebbe goes to sleep at night, before he goes to sleep, he says, Kriya Shema, he does Tingin Chatzos, he does all. So he thinks about, the people that is in his life. Who does he think about? So the Chassid, the Satmar Chassid said, when he thinks about his family, he says, who else? He thinks about his Mukusharim, the people who are close to him. And very enough, well, he speaks about, he thinks about his Moistus. In Satmar, the Moistus are a very big thing, the Moistus. And very enough. He says, what do you mean very enough? That's what he thinks about, the people that are close to him. So Rabbi Yael says, when the Lubavitcher Rebbe goes to sleep at night, he thinks about the whole world. A Rebbe is not someone that is, a leader of a community. It's not what a Rebbe is. A Rebbe is the DNA. It's the DNA it's the cosmic DNA of the whole world. So just like if a person's foot hurts, you hear stories where the Rebbe tells, Chassid, go fly out to Texas, in some, Derfel, some, strange location that no one ever heard of, and you're going to go there, take matzahs, and you'll find a person that is going to tell you that you'll meet a person at the airport, and that's the person you should give the matzahs to. No one ever heard of the place, no one knows of such a person. The Rebbe somehow knows that there's a person there that needs matzahs. Why is it? Because if your foot hurts you, right, when your foot hurts you, so you feel the pain. That's the way it works. When there's a certain when there's neurons flowing through your body, each part of your body is connected to your brain. Each senses what's going on in the rest of your brain. If that's true on this physical, biological level, that's true on the spiritual, biological level. And that means when the Rebbe sense that there's a Jew in Texas somewhere that needs matzahs, that asks for matzahs on Pesach, that message comes to the brain, comes to the Rebbe, and that message is like a pain. It has to be answered. The Rebbe is not if, it's who. It's the cosmic energy. And being so, only really a Rebbe could tell us and direct us on what our job is in this world. It's the Rebbe is the only one that could really shed light and open our minds and open up our hearts to understand what our objective is in this world. Because without a Rebbe, what are we left with? The expression used in Chazal is like we're a blind man, feeling across the walls to see where we're going. It means it's impossible to really know where we should be headed. So the question is, before the idea of a Rebbe, before the Baal Shem Tov, which really this concept of a Rebbe was revolutionized. There was a revolution, the Baal Shem Tov came along, and there was a lot of resistance to this idea of Rebbe. But when before the Baal Shem Tov, so what did they do? Okay, that's a good question. That's discussed. There's letters and sichos that discuss this question, that whether there was a Rebbe or a necessity of the Rebbe, maybe things changed. Either way, we're currently living in a generation that without a Rebbe, we have no direction. So for those of us that already allow ourselves for that connection to be on a very real level, so we already see this. But for others, perhaps it has to be perhaps more awakened. There's I once saw on a clip they have on the Living Torah. They had years ago on these Mitzvah Shabbos, they have the clip of the Rebbe with the Sicha and parts of the Sicha and then a story. So they have someone passing by the Rebbe. This is probably, a person who survived the war. And he speaks to the Rebbe in Yiddish, and he says, wants the Rebbe to know. I guess he wanted to break conversation. He tells the Rebbe, "Mein Vav is a chassid. My wife is a chassid." The Rebbe told him, "You're also, you just don't know it yet." And that's not a bragging comment. That's a comment of truth, that every person is really connected to the moyach, as the Baal Tanya writes in the second chapter of Tanya, to the brain of the generation, as we said, the spiritual, biological connection. So it's a matter of just opening up to that connection. So the Rebbe is the one that gives us that guidance, gives us that direction. And living in the turmoil that we're currently living in, there's no question that the darkness that we're living in is the darkness, the choshech, kofel, mechupel, this double, triple layer of darkness. It's almost impossible to know what's right or what's wrong. So I remember talking with students of mine a number of months ago. Somehow we mentioned about a chassid of Nissen Nemenov. Nissen Nemenov was a very, very spiritual, holy man. And he was the leader of the Renwa Yeshiva. Very big year Shemayim. So they say about him that he had such a disconnect from physicality that, he didn't know what ice cream was. He used to bring about it as if he heard that in America there's a thing called ice cream, and he used to constantly criticize that people had tightness about ice cream. He didn't even know what it was till once they saw him eating he came to America for a wedding. He was eating the ice cream. So they said, "How could you be eating the ice cream? You've been screaming against it for so long." He says, this is what it is. He didn't even appreciate this concept. So we're speaking about it, and I said, how many of you have any connection to this story? Does it mean anything to you? That level of refinement, of trying to be so disconnected, of having so totally unaware of basic physical, to us, ice cream, stopping from eating ice cream is almost a joke, right? For us, stop watching videos on YouTube that are not proper is the challenge, or guiding our eyes is a challenge. Turning our emotions away from things that are just going to cause us to be in a depressive state is the challenge. Here we're talking about someone who that level was for sure. That was not to begin with a problem. He's dealing with whether the ice cream is a problem. So we're living in a darkness today. I was looking a little bit at the Friedrich Rebbe's Laputi Debur on Yutas Kislev, where he describes, this so similar idea in the Friedrich Rebbe's times already. How, we're living at a time where our generation is so disconnected, and there's a deep feeling of disconnection. The truth is, we're not even aware that we're disconnected. We're in a level of disconnect that we don't even realize we're disconnected. Ceders, it explains on Purim. It says on Purim, that on that night the king's sleep was disturbed. So we know it's brought down that whenever it says Hamelach in the Megillah is referring to Hashem. So it says on that night, Hashem's night was disturbed. So the question that's asked in Hasidus, what does it mean God's night? What does it mean his sleep is disturbed? It doesn't make any sense. So there's a lengthy discussion in Hasidus that discusses that there's two levels. One is considered night and one is sleep. The person's asleep, they're not conscious. They're not fully conscious of things. Their mind is not really working. They live in a very subconscious realm, and such, etc. And therefore, there's like a distortion. You have dreams about things which are not fully true. There's a distortion of reality. So that's a level of sleep. And then you have a level of darkness, which is you're not even aware that you're dreaming. You're not even aware that there's this distortion of reality. The Jews in the times of Hashverosh were living in this double darkness to the point that not only were they in a state of delusion, they weren't even aware that they were in a state of delusion. And the whole miracle of Balaylahu, the miracle of Purim, was how they were able to at least get to the point to realize that they were in a state of dreaming, that they were in a delusional world, that we were able to sense at least that they're in a delusion. And for us, I would say this is not to think bad about ourselves or look at ourselves in a negative light, because that perpetuates and fuels this darkness. But for us, living in this mentality of the world around us, we don't even begin to appreciate the level of delusion that we're in. We don't even begin to think that we're in a state of delusion. For us, we somehow, we push, we try to reach levels of closeness to Hashem, trying to connect to divinity, try to be somewhat on a more spiritual plane. But there's the whole notion of what that means is somewhat of a disconnect. You know, today, for some people, the aspects of spirituality is a complete confusion between being spiritual and being connected to the divinity. Somehow people think that because they feel spiritual, that means they're feeling connection to God. That's again, that's a delusion. Spirituality is an escape. Spirituality is a way of running away from reality. That's not what the purpose. That's not divinity. Divinity is here. Divinity is working on yourself. Divinity is change. Divinity is taking the physical and making it a vessel for godliness. So either way, the point is that in our current state, having clarity, knowing where to go, understanding our mission, realizing what we should be doing is almost, it's not just an uphill battle, so we don't even realize we're on a hill. There's so much darkness. Years ago, I had a teenager going through certain struggles, and describing specifics of what he was going through. He was very depressed and very down about certain things, and we're trying to give him a perspective on perhaps certain things he could do that makes him maybe life to be more positive, build positive in his life, etc. So he told me, he said, and this line was a very powerful line. He said, certain people could see the light of the end of the tunnel. He says, I don't even know that I'm in a tunnel. In other words, you could live in such a state of delusion, you could see the light at the end of the tunnel. You don't even realize you're in the tunnel, but there is somewhere that you're going to go to. You're living in the tunnel to go through it. It's a very deep state of negativity. But at the same time, it's also a deep realization that we could be in a state where we just don't even appreciate that we need guidance, or that how far we are. We think we could live by ourselves. We have a shir, we go to davening 3 times a day, we have a minyan, and we have a shir in Gemara, we do daf yomi, or we go learn to shir Ceders. So we're good people. We're living the life. Why? Because we have, we do the right things. We check off our box every day. We went to shir, we went to the daven, we give tzedakah, the whole to-do list that we do as Jews, we do it. And nothing wrong with that. It's very good. And Afrei Hamaisam, the Chav Ma'alabavas, as the Chinuch says, that the action actually leads to the feeling of the relationship. But what are we here for? Why are we here? What's our purpose? What's our mission? What are we trying to accomplish in this world? Where are we trying to go? For some people, this question is very depressing, because when they face that question, they feel like there is no purpose, and therefore they give up. So obviously, the question has to be understood from a positive point of view. Tanya, right in the beginning, Tanya asks a question. Now, in the beginning of Tanya, we're going to start the first chapter of Tanya in a few days. The Rebbe asks the biggest question you could ask. So you learn Tanya most times, at least I learned it the first few times I didn't get that. This was the question. After thinking about it a little bit more, the Rebbe asks a question. So he starts off, it sounds very lomdish. He brings a Mishnah. The Mishnah says that there's a brisa, Tanya, there's a brisa that says that there's a neshama, and we make the neshama swear, ti tzadik val ti rasha. And even if the whole world tells you, you always have to see yourself as a rasha. And then he brings a contradictory Talmudic statement that says that you're not supposed to think of yourself as a rasha. So how do you reconcile the contradiction? So you could look at it as a very lomdish question, sort of like a way of opening the discussion. But really, the question is much deeper than that. It's much more fundamental. What is the Baal HaTanya asking you? He's saying is, how could I be a real religious person and be happy? It's impossible. Because being religious means a constant striving to getting better. That means I constantly have to grow and move forward and see my faults, because you don't move forward if you don't see your faults. If you can't acknowledge that there's a deficiency, you can't be open with yourself. If you don't allow yourself to appreciate that you're struggling, that's another part of the darkness we're living in today. We don't even allow ourselves to appreciate that we're struggling with something, because we right away, there's so much out there to suppress a struggle, whether it's drugs, a movie, other forms of just complete or rationalization, just using your mind to rationalize it. So although there is naturally a struggle, the Tanya tells us there's going to be a natural struggle in our states, in our minds. We almost go through this swing on a constant basis between our nefesh elokis and our nefesh habahamis. There's this constant struggle that takes place. So it's expected for us to struggle. But we somehow today want to numb ourselves from it, because facing up to reality becomes too much. This sense of feeling insecure because I have a struggle is too much. And as a result, we usually take the path that is easy, the path at least that we think is easy, the path that makes us feel good, by suppressing and running away, etc. What about just facing up to the struggle? Students of mine ask me, should I bother sit and learn if I'm not interested? I said, yeah, just acknowledge that you're not interested. Recognize the fact that you're not interested and try to understand why. Make sense of it, or at least be honest with yourself that this is a real thing. Confront the fear, confront the challenge. But instead, okay, I'm not feeling it, I'll turn away, I'll go to sleep, I'll do something else. We're so not interested, we're so afraid to face our struggles, our inner insecurities, that we just find it so easy to just run away. So you're talking about trying to find meaning in life and trying to find perspective and trying to find purpose. We're always running away from these points. God gave us a gift. What's the gift? God gave us the gift that when we have pain, we mentioned before, we have pain, so the brain registers the location of the body that's hurt. If we wouldn't have that message, so we, God forbid, could be suffering for something severe, and it could lead to very dangerous, very bad things. So it's a blessing that we have pain. But just like there's physical pain, there's spiritual and emotional pain. Those are indicators. God gave us indicators. The fact that we feel guilty, the fact that we feel ashamed, the fact that we feel insecure, those are very, very deep spiritual indicators for us to recognize there's something wrong. So it's like the person who's feeling physical pain and just constantly throws into their mouth, OxyContins or whatever it is, fentanyl. Just constantly suppressing and numbing the pain. Now, for some, that's, at least at some level, that's important because they have to be able to cope. But it's that need to suppress. I don't want to face the challenge. So likewise, when it comes to spiritual pain, how many people come to, grow up and they feel the pain and the hurt of religion or the insecurities and the doubts and all that. So what are they left with? They're left with the pain. So they don't want to deal with the pain. So they shut down everything. They run away. And now you're going to discuss about meaning. Now you're going to discuss about a sense of purpose, direction. What do you mean? That brings up all the insecurity. Now, again, for some, at some stage, that may be too overwhelming, and there has to be a healthy environment to be able to nurture and deal with the insecurity. But it's inherent to every single Jewish person to be insecure, not just because of our state of goals, but because of the fact that we have this nefesh elokis, nefesh habahamis personality disorder. That's what it really is. It's a personality disorder. We're not sure who we are from moment to moment. 1 minute we could get excited about davening and being involved in Judaism and feeling good about it. The next moment we feel like we want to do everything that's wrong and feeling so bad that we can't because, or at least we're told we can't, and we don't want to have to live with that shame and guilt that we can't. So we feel the struggle so badly. That's normal. That's good. There's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong with acknowledging the hurt and the pain, because that's an indicator to know what's going on. That's the inroads to allow yourself to get direction and clarity. So either way, the Baal HaTanya asks the question, how could it be, or how is it possible for there to be joy in that? How could you live your life? Dr. Rebbe asks the question. He says that if you're going to be in a state of negativity or self-doubt or questioning yourself, feeling insecure, you're not going to be happy. But there's a explicit command in the Torah that says that you have to serve God with joy. How do the two go together? Servitude with joy? That's antithetical. That's a contradiction. Took me a while to realize that that's really what the question is. At least I think so. But that is fundamental to understanding and appreciation of what does it mean that we're struggling, that we're in a state of delusion, where the deep insecurities that we have. And therefore, when we're asked the question, what's a Rebbe? The question of what's a Rebbe is not a question of, so I need a bracha because, I'm about to get married, I want a Rebbe's bracha. That's also true. Or you ask the question, perhaps, I need the guidance. I'm not sure, should I do this business deal or that business deal? So I'm going to ask. That's also true, right? The Rebbe has all of that as well. But it's not why I have a Rebbe, or that's not what a Rebbe is. You have the letter of Dr. Rebbe, Nigeres HaKodesh, in chapter 22, a very, 11 and 22. Very strong rejection of this concept of going to a Rebbe and asking the Rebbe for blessings and advice in the physical world. Okay, we do that, and however we make sense of what the Balatani says over there is another discussion for another time. But the very notion of recognizing, he brings the pasuk that says, "Loi l'chachamim lechem." You don't ask the wise for bread. That's not their job. A Rebbe's job is for guidance, is to direct you, is to sense that you have a purpose and you have a meaning, and how do I fulfill that purpose and that meaning? That's what a Rebbe is. When you want to know what you should do in life, for most people, what do? You use your brain. I don't know, most people, that's actually maybe not so true, but I would like to think so, that you would ask your brain, sort of like, you would weigh out the pros and the cons. You would try to make sense of it. Should you not? So maybe you're still not sure of yourself, so you'll ask someone else. But what are you asking the other person? Because you want their brain. Right? Somehow you think you don't either trust your brain or you want to get an objective brain, whatever it may be. But the point is you ask the brain. Why do you ask the brain? Because somehow we've been programmed to think that the brain has the answers. More likely than not, it doesn't, because the brain is just going to give you more different viewpoints on things. So that's another big mistake. People think that logic actually gives answers, or logic is an indicator of truth. It's quite the opposite, because logic inherently has it has a thesis and antithesis. It has the two opposites in it. So it's impossible to use logic to prove anything, because logic always contradicts itself. You use the very same logic to prove A, to disprove A. But for some reason, we feel secure with logic. And that's why we use it. And the reason is because God made it that way. God made it the world that we live in, the world of tikkun, shema. I'm sure I will explain this more. This is not my realm. But this concept of using the brain, of seichel, of making things in control, the most scariest thing that we could imagine in our minds is losing our minds. And unfortunately, there is, just read yesterday, actually, there's in Israel that they're trying to they're trying to get they're starting trials for a new drug for Alzheimer's. It's an unbelievable machla. They has to get, has to find the nefus, and David has the nefus. He has to provide us with the clarity to find it. But that's the most scariest thing, no? To lose your mind, not have just completely, right? That the person, what do we turn to? So for us, the mind is so powerful. That's why we trust it, and we like. So now, most of us, at least sort of let the mind work. But there's some of us that appreciate that the mind is faulty. So what do we rely on? We rely on our deep intuition. We sense things. We recognize things from a deeper place. And that propels us into a certain, right? You have a question, should you do this business deal? Should you not do the business deal? So what are you going to do? You're going to think about it in your mind from today till tomorrow. You'll have the same doubts. But then you sense something. It's like, I trust the person. I don't trust the person. This sounds real. This doesn't sound real, right? There's a certain intuition you have. A certain, if you want to call it, collective unconscious, as in Jung's terms, of reservoir of knowledge that you could tap into. So if we do this on a day-to-day basis for our physical needs, right, then what do we do when it comes to our spiritual needs? We need to tap into that reservoir. Who has that reservoir? Who provides us that to be able to tap into that reservoir? What gives us the connection to that reservoir? That's the Rebbe. That guidance, that direction, to know who I really am and what I should really do is only by being connected, by having that clarity from the Rebbe. So again, this idea of the Rebbe is again, it's the DNA of the fabric of consciousness. It allows for there to be the universe, the operation of every single individual working on his purpose and her purpose, the mission in the world. So that's the idea of a Rebbe. So a Rebbe is it's the guiding light, the direction of how I should take my life. And when I'm open to wanting to hear the answer, which is again what we said before, that first of all, the recognition of the state of delusion that we live in, or maybe not even realizing that we're in a state of delusion. But deeper yet, once we recognize we're in a state of delusion, recognizing that we have to be comfortable with our insecurities and ask and try to find direction. So that's when we go to our Rebbe. So Shmuel Munkus tells the Alter Rebbe, he says, Mamanavshech. He says, if you're a Rebbe, in other words, you're the one guiding me. You're the one telling me how I'm supposed to live my life, right? That means you have the whole world in your pocket, right? This is what a Rebbe is, right? You're fundamentally all the strings are pulled for you, but deeper yet, you provide the consciousness to the purpose in life. You're the one that provides all of this. So then this can't. Then how could something like this, being arrested or anything like that, interfere with that? Just doesn't make sense. You're saying there's a greater power above you. There's something else that it could interfere in your connection to us, or in your way of fulfilling, so to speak, your purpose and your mission, or your ability to connect to us. That doesn't resonate. That doesn't make sense. So if you're a Rebbe, then for some of us, we appreciate after Gimel Tammuz that it's not as if we can't. Yes, we don't have that physical connection to the Rebbe, but the Rebbe is guiding us and directing us. There's no obstacle. In fact, Alter Rebbe in Tanya writes, breaking to the Zohar, that after the passing of the tzaddik is even more here in the physical world. There's more opportunity to tap into. He's not limited to a vessel or to a space or whatever it is. So Shmuel is saying, if you're a Rebbe, what does a Rebbe mean? A Rebbe, by definition, the whole idea of being limited or being affected by the concept of something outside. There's no outside. This is you're the heartbeat of consciousness. So what's the other side? The other side is that if you're not a Rebbe, how could he have taken away the pleasures of Tainug Hazeh from everybody from hundreds of thousands of people? So simply that means is that you're not a Rebbe. If you're not a Rebbe, then right? But again, so then what's the Mamanavshech? So I'm still struggling with it, but I think the message, at least, what's the other side? The other side is that he's highlighting to the Frierdiker Rebbe the true depth of what does he mean if you're a Rebbe. In other words, if you're a Rebbe cannot be affected by that. And what's the other result? What's the other result if you're not a Rebbe? The other result is you're not a Rebbe, then the whole purpose, the whole meaning of life, the whole idea of reality falls apart. Because what are you directing us at? What are you trying to channel us to do? What are you trying to direct us to? What are you trying to give us? What are you trying to make us do? Why are you trying to get us to a higher state of elevation, of refinement, etc.? It's one and the same argument. If you're a Rebbe, then this by definition is what a Rebbe is. So it's not sort of like presenting two sides and saying either this or that, and either way you should, surrender. This is precisely what you are. This is who you are. You present you provide this connection to the higher realms, and you're in control of all of this. So if Shmuel Munkus was a chassid, could perhaps understand the Rebbe a little bit better than the Rebbe could understand the Rebbe. They have the Gemara. The Gemara says, Rabbi Yechon says, the Gemara says, Rabbi Yechon said he wasn't sure, before he passed away, he wasn't sure where is he going. Is he going to Gan Eden? Is he not going to Gan Eden? The question is obvious. You're dealing with Rabbi Yochanan. Rabbi Yochanan is one of the greatest sages that we had. And he was someone that never left the Daled Amos of the Beis Medrash. He always was davening and learning. He was busy the whole time. So what do you mean he had doubts? Where is he going? The answer is yeah, because sometimes when you're so stuck in your way of thinking, you only know this. You don't really see the perspective on an outside world. You don't really see, have you really mastered all your abilities? Have you really been able to fulfill your purpose? So sometimes, again, on some level, there is the fact that only a chassid could really appreciate what a Rebbe is. But in that message, Reb Shmuel Munk is not just telling the Alter Rebbe his perspective. He's telling the Alter Rebbe what idea of a Rebbe is, what the idea of the mission is, what the idea is of what a chassid sees a Rebbe, and therefore, it's almost like bestowing on the Rebbe that final touch of this is your mission. The chassid telling the Rebbe his mission, identifying the mission of the Rebbe. And therefore, what does the Alter Rebbe respond? The Alter Rebbe doesn't respond. The response is that he allows himself to be arrested. But what's the point? What am I trying to bring? It's not trying to bring a chiddush here. I'm trying to bring out how when we're thinking about ourselves, Yutas Kislev, Chav Kislev, and as we mentioned, we're moving into the actual avodah. Yutas Chav Kislev is the time where we experience the or, the light. As the Rebbe Rashab says, that Yutas Kislev there's a certain renewal of the energy. Or b'chayis nafshenu. There's an energy, there's a life, there's something that is imbued within us. So sometimes when we're caught up in the light, it's very exciting. It's like when you perhaps for some when they start dating and they get married. So at the beginning there's a lot of energy, positive energy. You feel good, everything feels good. You're living on a different plane. So everything is good. That's in the state of Ratzeh, where you're sort of disconnected from reality. It's only one. Where does the avodah really begin? Where does actual, where does the development, where does the refinement, the process of growth happen? It's once that so to speak, comes subconscious, when that excitement, with that energy is sort of faded in the background. Now you have to deal with the realities. And that's what we're holding. We're holding Chaf Aleph, already the beginning of the first few hours of where that energy of Yutas Chav Kislev is supposed to now make an impact in our lives. And we have to ask ourselves, so what did it supposed to mean to us? What did Yutas Chav Kislev supposed to do for us? For some of us, it was a good concert, and it was very exciting because we were able to perhaps feel connected with the words, their lyrics, and be able to feel the music. But deeper yet, what really is our purpose? What really are we here for? Are we here to live our lives of pleasure? Are we here to live our lives for doing the standard, living up to the standards of our society? Well, what exactly is our purpose? What exactly are we trying to be? What are we trying to do? And the truth is, without Chassidus, without being in tune. See, what's Chassidus? What's Chassidus? At least, okay, this question was asked by many, and the Rebbe has a whole lengthy discourse on the topic. But on some level, what's Chassidus? Chassidus is a guided meditation to knowing who you are. That's what it is. It's a guided meditation to knowing who you are. When you learn Chassidus, it opens you up to experience a certain reality that you just were so subconsciously aware of. You're only subconsciously aware of, but you sort of blocked out from your conscious mind. Because as we mentioned before, it's facing up to the reality of who we are. You see, there's a very interesting is part of the human conditions. We like running away from ourselves. For some reason, we don't like really get in tune. We like running away because the grass is greener perhaps on the other side. For whatever it may be, we like sort of like not focusing on who we really are. And we like to do this, like even, let's say, teenagers, as we grow older, we sort of like try to create a disconnect from our parents because now we have to be independent, right? So our parents, we sort of know like we could rely that they'll always be there for us, so we don't get too worried about it. So we could feel like now we're going to branch out for ourselves. So there's like a deep need to like run away. That's part of we're constantly running away from ourselves. And at the same time, we can't fully, right? We know that because, it's like the greatest example is like there's no fight like two brothers or a family fight. Like the moment before you're cursing out your brother, I'll kill you, I'll knock your head on the wall. The second later, someone starts up with your brother, you're out to kill the other guy. The whole idea doesn't make sense because, again, at the one time you feel you could lose, you don't think you're ever going to lose your brother, you don't think that connection is so deep, but at the same time you also want to branch off, you want to run away from yourselves a bit, The same thing is with religion. The reason why we could branch away from religion is because to some extent we think we always have it behind us. This deep, deep, deep subconscious mind, we feel that it's always there, available to tap back into. Now we're going to branch out. Now we're going to discover the truth of the world, right? The objective truth that the Hollywood movies decided for us is the truth. And that's going to be the world we want to tap into and live in and so on and so forth. And it's very exhilarating, it's very exciting. And for some people that are not necessarily so physical inclined or very into that world, so they'll delve into the psychological world and run into that headspace, or the logical world, the philosophical world, and delve into that place. All of these are very interesting, avenues and paths to try to find yourself. There's a person, I don't remember his full name, but it's this guy that became, he converted to Judaism. He was brought up Catholic, and then he moved from Catholicism to Protestantism, and now he's Jewish. So he goes through his story. I was there. He went around. Maybe he still does it. Probably has the stories. Probably on YouTube you could find it. Anyway, so he was saying his story. I was there when he was saying his story, and he said something very interesting. He said that he's now lives in Eretz Yisrael, and he's by the Kaisel every once in a while, and he meets people by the Kaisel, and he's like, "Oh, where are you from?" He says, "What do you mean? I'm from Israel." And they start speaking about their journey in life, and all of them have the same journey. That they were brought up in Israel, and they went to India. They were exploring for spirituality, and they were finding truth. They all ran around the whole world, and now where did they end up back? Right in front of the Kaisel again, right? We're always looking for something outside of us. We're always trying to go somewhere else. We're always thinking that there's something better, something more interesting, something more real, something more true away. We can't really believe that the truth lies within ourselves, that our neshama and our deep essence, our psychology, neshama psychology, same idea, our deep essence of who we are is really true. We somehow have to think that the world around us, we're blinded by the message of the masses. If everybody says it, somehow we think it's true. Why? Because, what do you mean? He says it, they say it, the other person says it. When we disconnect from ourselves and we need to find something else, what we're left with is emptiness. And when we're empty, we need to find some sense of peace. So what do you do when you feel empty and need to find peace? You have to suppress a lot of the emotions. You drug yourself. You maybe not physically drug yourself, but you mentally drug yourself. You do things to get yourself away from that feeling. That's what we usually do. As a result, you feel more and more disconnected, because that's how you program your mind. So what happens here is, at the end of the day, is that the need started from trying to run away. Then, as a result of the need to run away, now you're really empty. You can't acknowledge you're empty because you ran away, because then you feel defeated. So you have to sort of numb that pain to keep on going down that path. But if we could pull this all back, if we could try to, again, as we mentioned before, be vulnerable with our insecurities and allow ourselves to acknowledge, what are we really bothered by? What do we really want in life? Asking these questions, the questions of, what am I here for? Why am I here? What's my objective in life? What's the purpose and meaning? So Ceders provides, as I said before, this guided meditation to this. It opens us up to a world of the depths of our subconscious, the realms of our inner being, a world of where we could actually recognize truths. The analogy I like giving, though, Ceders stands for Chabad. Ceders, Chabad Ceders is Chabad, Chochma Bina Das. So there's a misunderstanding that Chabad means intellectual, objective analysis. It's not what it is. I mean, not from my experience. It's not an intellect. Yes, there are very logical, perhaps, proofs and ways of thinking in Hasidus. That's not what it is. Chabad is a very intuitive process. The analogy I like using for this is like going to a therapist. You go to a therapist, and the therapist, you describe your problems or your insecurities or whatever it is, and the therapist starts speaking to you. And as the therapist is talking and trying to explain to you perhaps where this is all coming from, you're like, yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, I resonate with all that. And you feel good about it, and everything makes sense, and now you at least understand where this is all coming from. But then you could ask yourself a second, how do I know that's true? What made that true? Because the therapist told me, like, in other words, it's not an objective truth. It's not something that's true because objectively you find A plus B equals C. It's not something that you could prove objectively. It's something that resonates deep with your subconscious mind. It's something you sense from a very deep place. And that's the same thing of Chabad is. Chabad is not this A plus B equals C, and therefore there's a God, and therefore you should live your life this way. It's a deep experience. It's a traveling of the soul and the reliving and the re-encountering of those experiences that the soul has that now becomes deeply ingrained within us, but becomes very subconscious. So just like a therapist tries to make us aware of the triggers based on the past experiences we had that are now deep in our subconscious mind, Chassidus, on obviously on a much more spiritual, divine level, does the same thing. So Chassidus is the guided meditation to getting us to know our truth. If we allow ourselves to be open for it, a lot of times we can learn Chassidus, and it becomes, like we said before, like the checklist of things we need to do. It's the things we learn to share in the morning, and perhaps we even have to share at night. But the depth of understanding, the openness to Chassidus, the recognition that this is the guide, this is a way of thinking that is going to open me up to perhaps something much deeper, something more real. That's something we're not so open for now. We're not ready to do. So that's the first step. That's the first element of a Yutas Kislev, Chav Kislev experience, is this recognition that there's a need to face our inner fears, to face our inner insecurities of who we are and why we're here. And the only way we're really going to get the knowledge, the best therapist, or the therapist that has the answers, is Chassidus. Not running away to some psychologist that's going to tell you that maybe you should, meditate on nothing for 5 hours, or perhaps read a book of, how to influence friends and make friends, or whatever, read all these self-help guided books. That's not going to get you anywhere. That's going to take you further in the path of numbing and feeling miserable, because you think you're getting help when you're not getting help. Or perhaps for some, it's completely draining their energy by watching movies and drugs and, socializing with friends that, entertain themselves with substances. All of this is leading to the same place. It's leading to this disconnect and this need for further fuel that's going to allow you to feel disconnected, versus opening up a book of Chassidus, learning Tanya, learning Maimorim, which literally is the greatest. For me, I was brought up in a yeshiva that it was, the standards over there is that you learn Chassidus for a few hours a day, whatever it is. And I had good teachers, I had very good teachers, world-renowned mashpiyim. I just never resonated with Chassidus. It just didn't speak to me at first. And here, I'm a 15, 16-year-old, and I'm trying to understand, this thing doesn't talk to me, but I'm officially a Chabad Chassid. So how does this work? It creates a very deep insecurity. It's, I think, the root of a lot of teenager insecurity about where they go off religiously, is because when you're in an environment, at least for those that are in that environment, where you're supposed to be feeling certain things and feel connected to things, and you're just not. So either you're crazy or your environment is crazy. And you have to somehow make that decision. It's very hard to say you're crazy. So you have to sort of like say, not that they're crazy, but they're not for me. It's different. Everybody's different, whatever. You can rationalize it the way you want. But for me, that was a real struggle. Like, so this just didn't talk to me. I enjoyed Gemara. I enjoyed Nigla. That was very interesting. But Chassidus was like, not for me. And when I got like 19 years old, I started opening the Tanya in a whole different light. To me, it was like, let me see how this could talk to me. Let me see. Maybe it has the answers. The more questions I had, I just realized I wasn't getting answers anyway. The questions, maybe I'm more philosophical, so my questions were about the truth of nature, reality, God, and connection and revelation, whatever it is. But even all the answers, they never provide answers, because all the answers just give you more to think about and more doubts and more questions. So you're left with nothing. Like I said before, logic has a thesis and antithesis in itself. It's, in Chassidus, the words is davar v'hifuchai. Chassidus, seichel, has both. It's impossible to get an answer from a philosophical way of thinking. So I said, I'll learn Tanya. Maybe Tanya will give me some clarity. And I took the daily Tanya. And for me, every day was like an experience for an hour, taking the Tanya, trying to think into it, trying to see, how does this Tanya connect to me today? What's the message of today's Tanya and how it relates to me? And for some days it was an hour, some days it was longer. And during davening, I would think about it. It was such an, first of all, I felt free. I felt like I'm opening myself up to a reality that I was just totally disconnected to before. But deeper yet, it started answering things. It didn't answer things objectively. It didn't take me into, a discussion about how do you prove the truth of something. And epistemologically, that wasn't what we got into. What you get into is a discussion of what you're actually sensing deep in your subconscious mind. What's really going on? And when for me at least, when I started learning Chassidus on that level, it woke me up to a point of where like, okay, there's questions. There's nothing wrong with questions. Questions are good, but where are the questions stemming from? The questions are stemming from my logical mind, but that's not who I am. That's not the truth of my existence. My logic doesn't precede me, wasn't the first thing of my existence. It's my first, perhaps, thing that I value the most, as we said before, but it's not who I am. And just that recognition sort of changed the whole perspective. And what I realized is that when you allow yourself to tap into this perspective, so then even the struggles, even the questions, even the doubts, even the insecurities, don't throw you off. Don't make you feel negative about yourself. Don't make you feel that maybe there's something wrong. You're crazy, or other people are crazy. And then when I learned the Maimor of Pada B'Shalom, where the whole idea there's describing that you could actually deal with the struggle, but from a peaceful stage of mind, where it doesn't have to be a war, it doesn't have to be a fight, it doesn't have to be every second the question of self-identity and a question of insecurity. You could fully be secure in who you are, know exactly who you are, but at the same time you struggle because you're still a neshama b'guf. You still have, let's say a child that went through some trauma. So when they grow older and they never really dealt with the trauma, so what could happen is you could be 25 years old or 30 years old and there's still that trauma. So there's the trigger to that trauma. What happens when you're triggered? So you don't realize that the trigger is that 7-year-old child that's still in you. You think it's you. You don't realize it's a 7-year-old. But imagine you're able to somehow separate yourself and say, oh, hi, 7-year-old me, and speak to yourself on that plane. And recognize that you're creating these walls of resistance and these states of negativity because of a 7-year-old child that never got the validation it needed. A whole different world, then. It's a whole different realization. The struggle may still be there. You still get triggered. You still get offended when someone makes you feel disrespected because when you were 7 years old, someone made you feel worthless. But at the same time, it doesn't take you into this tailspin of negativity of where you just feel worthless again and you feel empty and you feel like your whole life is not worth living. Because you can identify and recognize, okay, that's not who I am today. That's my 7-year-old self. Yeah, it's a trigger. It gets me. But that people have certain traumas that develop into triggers of anxiety. So you recognize the trigger and you see, okay, that makes sense. When I was this age, something happened that made me start being nervous about certain things. That's where I got programmed to be that way. It doesn't mean it takes care of the problem. It doesn't mean all of a sudden that your mind, on some level, you could even work on that level where you could reprogram yourself. That's the beauty of neuroplasticity. You could actually change who you are. You become something, you could reprogram yourself. But even on a basic level where a person could feel secure with knowing that they're going to be triggered and not feel all of a sudden all broken again, because I had a student years ago who went through a very tough childhood and very broken person. And when they were trying to find themselves, so they gravitated towards religion. Religion sort of became what I describe it afterwards as a drug, basically. It was a way of feeling good. And because it didn't come from a very healthy point of view, it didn't healthy place, as soon as the bubble was bursted a little bit, there was a little hole put into the bubble of that whole safety net of religion. So the person felt completely like, what's going on? The deep insecurity came back. This sense of who am I? What am I doing? And here I was being religious. Here I thought I'm living the life that's supposed to be the answer to all of this, the cure. And we spoke about this, and I said, religion is not a cure to anything. You used religion as a drug, whatever it is we spoke about. But the biggest problem is that there was never an identification that the trigger of why you feel this way is something that's rooted deep in a past of where you're going to constantly be triggered with it, but it doesn't have to now question your whole identity of who you are today. You can separate the two. So what am I bringing this up for? Because it's the same thing within our religious experience. A lot of times we saw, there are moments of when we get triggered and we question, so do I really care so much about my religious experience? Do I really care so much about keeping Torah mitzvahs? I really feel sometimes different. And maybe for me, this doesn't work. Maybe for me, this is a challenge. And our whole identity becomes questioned. Our whole struggles, all the self-doubt comes up again. But from learning Chassidus, at least for me, the programming, the concept of B'diya b'derech shalom, in the words of the Pada B'Shalom Maimon, this idea of redemption, of freedom from a state of peace. What does that mean? It means that for me, I could fully identify why I feel that way. I could resonate with the fact that I have this struggle. I have a trauma. You know what my trauma is? I have an Nefesh Bahamas. It's the most traumatic experience in life. And I got it from day one. And guess what? That trauma lasted for 12 years before I had a Nefesh Elokis. So who programmed me first? There's a fascinating Orach Chaim. The Orach Chaim says, there's a Mishnah in Baba Kama. The Mishnah says there's such a thing called a Shur Hanetztadman. They used to have, as those of us familiar with the gladiators, they used to have in Roman Colosseums, they used to have animals fighting and killing. So they used to train animals and oxen to kill. That was the whole purpose. That's where So the Mishnah in Baba Kama speaks about what happens if you have. We know that some of us are familiar with the Mishnayos, and Baba Kama talks about if one's ox gores another individual and kills the other person, so that ox has to be put to death. We're not going to get into the questions, why is the ox at fault, whatever it is. The ox has to be put to death. So there's a Mishnah in Baba Kama that says, what about an ox that was trained, the Shurhait Stadman, the ox that was trained to gore? And is if an ox that gores and kills that was trained for that purpose, is a chayiv misa? Does that be put to death? And the Mishnah says it's potter. It's not chayiv. Why? Because it doesn't know any better, right? That's what you can't expect from it. Anything else. So the Orach Chaim in his Pirush Alater says the obvious, perhaps, but brilliant. He says, what do you expect from a Jewish person? For 13 years, we're like a Shar Tzaddik. All we have, we're running with our Nefesh Bahamas, with this emotional turmoil of just seeking out pleasure, of just trying to feel validation from a very physical place, of feeling good only because of the fact that we're getting our validation from the physical place. And now you expect me at 13 years old to all of a sudden say that I have to keep religion and feel good about it, and this should be my whole life? It's a non-starter. He says it's an impossibility. You have to retrain the ox. You have to deprogram and reprogram. And it's true on many levels, but on this level, especially if we think about it, why is it that when we're 14 years old, we think all of a sudden we have to feel this connection? Where? How are you supposed to feel the connection at 14 years old? Or 15 or 20? Did we take the effort to undo all that traumatic damage that we've done to ourselves till then? Even if you were brought up in a family that was very religious and had, tried to do chinuch in a proper way, there's still the Nefesh Bahamas within us is still there. It didn't go away, and it's still fighting and still wants its thing, So it may not be your soul, you weren't impacted or you weren't influenced in the most extreme ways. But how do you expect to all of a sudden, overnight, feel a disconnect and feel connected to godliness? It just doesn't make sense. It just doesn't work. So, talking about learning Chassidus, if we don't have the ability to program ourselves or reprogram ourselves or tap into the Nefesh Elokis, we're really at a loss. We're going to keep on identifying ourselves with that traumatic experience of the Nefesh Bahamas. And therefore, whenever we see an image or hear something or want something, automatically the urge is going to be so strong that we sort of question, so what do I really want? So a child doesn't know how to have impulse control. So a child doesn't know what it means that when you're told it's not good for you, they don't understand that what's not good for you is not good for you. So for them, they can't control themselves. So what happens when a child is about to do something that they're not supposed to? So you tell them, don't do it, it's not safe. Most children will do it anyways if they really want. They can't control themselves. What do you expect from them? You expect from them to just appreciate that you're telling them it's not good, and maybe hopefully down the road they'll appreciate that at least you were looking out for their safety. I mean, obviously, if it's really dangerous, you pull them away if they're not going to listen. But imagine for us, for 13 years, we had this impulse control to do everything wrong, or at least not connected to a spiritual, godly source to do things right. How do we all of a sudden override that programming? How do all of a sudden we change that programming that today, when we're 15, 20, 25 years old, we should all of a sudden feel, that the trigger is not there or that pull is not there? But deeper, more importantly, when we're now 15, 20 years old, so imagine a child who's never learned how to deal with their impulse control. They never learned how to have impulse control. So now when they're 20 years old, you tell them you can't have something, they don't know what you're talking about. The desire and the passion, the pull is so strong. You can't control. What are you going to tell? They never learned how to deal with it. And likewise for us religiously, for us to expect from ourselves somehow at 20, 25, 30, 40, wherever it is, to all of a sudden have this impulse control or this sense of recognizing that this is not what we should be doing. And even if we have a pull towards it, it's not something that we should really want and we could really control it and really our purpose in life is greater. Instead, what it really does for us is creates this uncertainty, this doubt. Right? If you could imagine it, maybe a bad example for this would be imagine when you're 20 years old and you still want to be a fireman. I mean, there are 20-year-olds that want to be firemen, but the idea is that for some of us, as you know, that's something that we think about when we're 2 years old, or 4 years old. At 20 years old, maybe we want to be something else. But imagine that idea that in religious context, right? That the same urges and the same struggles and the same triggers with the same lack of impulse control plays ourselves back when we're 25 years old. So the identity crisis that we go through. The fact that we're unsure, so who are we? Somehow we think that at 25 years old, we shouldn't have those pulls anymore. And even if we don't think that way consciously, because we rationally understand that's not true, but subconsciously, there creates that identity crisis. So without Chassidus, without having that, being empowered with that knowledge of who we really are, and deeply resonating with it, and be able to open up to a world of the Nefesh Elokis and allow that program to be programmed and downloaded into our consciousness, we're really up for a major, major battle. And as we said before, to the point that we don't even know we're living in a delusion. We could really think, what do you mean this is normal? And you fight for it. I have many people come to me and try to rationalize to me why Judaism makes no sense, and this is all not, which is probably true also. We're not talking about making sense per se, whatever. That's a different discussion, but the ideas of Judaism don't resonate, and it's not something that I know to be true, or even if I do, it just doesn't speak to me, and all of these things. Well, of course, if you have to explain to yourself why do you have pulls in a certain field, and you don't understand how come you never grew out of it, even though you were brought up religious, the mind has to make sense. Again, either I'm crazy or the world is crazy. So again, instead of facing up with this struggle and trying to understand why do you feel these different pulls, instead, again, you suppress it and run away. So the idea, again, Yutas Kislev, Chav Kislev, the idea of a Rebbe, the idea especially what Shmuel Munkus was telling the Alter Rebbe, this idea that if you're a Rebbe, so then you give the life to a person, you give the motivation, not just because of the fact that it's inspiring. You know, you learn Tanya. Some people will think that Tanya is very motivating. It's not motivating at all. It's actually quite depressing. The Alter Rebbe tells you exactly who you are. And he says, don't try to be anything better to some extent. He says, you get depressed if you think you should be more who you are. So literally, it's the total opposite of modern psychology. You know, in today's day, you go to a psychologist, or perhaps some will try to tell you, okay, you know, you're really very good and very talented, and it'll build you up to make you feel like you're, you know, aniva afsiyoid, you know, you're everything. Alter Rebbe tells you straight out, you know, maybe by the time you're finished, you think you're a Rosh Hashanah. You just like, you don't even begin to feel you're worth anything. But that shrewd honesty, that shrewd truth of who you are is exactly what you want to hear, because you want to know who I am. And now what do I need to work on? Instead of living in this delusion, instead of diluting yourself from the truth. So Chassidus is not, you know, this like happy-go-lucky type of experience where like, yeah, okay, that sounds good, you know, I'll try it. I feel, at least, you learn the mind of Chassidus afterwards, you feel so broken. You're like, okay, I'm really doing nothing. Really, sometimes you don't want to learn because you feel like it's just every day is another smack in the face. But that's the question of this being open and honest. That's really where it comes down to a person saying, you know what? I want to face my demons. I want to face my struggles. I want to be honest and open with myself. Yes, I'm not living up to the ideals that I should be, but at least let me get myself the courage to face up to that. And maybe if I learn Chassidus, I'll be able to download the experience of and the power of my Nefesh Elokis to be able to override those struggles. And deeper yet, as we said before, you become, if you allow for it, let's say, to just use another analogy for this, people who've been struggling, basically, you know, most of us live in a very negative space. I mean, not everybody, some people, a lot of people live in a very negative space. We've been programmed that way. That's the way the nature of the world lives around us. Everybody is busy today, especially with the psycho-conscious experience. Everybody's busy worried about everything that's going on. So what happens is that we don't even begin to think that we're worth anything. Today, to sense self and value is almost nothing, especially with the world of social media. So to actually think you're worth something when you find a 12-year-old or a 15-year-old on TikTok that can make millions of dollars just showing pictures of themselves. It makes you feel worthless, right? Whole social media today just fuels the debt. There's an article I read about how many the teenagers are depressed today just based on social media. Because what does it do to you? It makes you feel worthless, right? You're home, you have no metzius. Why? Because you don't have 20 million views looking at your whatever. That somehow becomes meaningful. That becomes glamorous. That becomes exciting. And we keep on watching these things because somehow it stimulates us, but at the same time we're feeling more worse about ourselves. So it's this constant fueling of negativity, and we reaffirm it. We constantly reaffirm it. We go back to the same place. It's like Stockholm syndrome. We keep on going to the same user the whole time, over and over and over again. Instead of cutting ourselves off and saying, you know what, enough of this garbage. No, we keep on watching TikTok and go through 6 hours of it every day. That's the reality we live through, this negative stream, this energy of negativity running through us. So how do you expect us to ever have any positive feelings about life? Why should we want to do anything in life? What should get us moving in life? Very hard. If we don't have a counterbalance, a counterforce that speaks positive, that makes us feel positive, that gives us a sense of meaning, something that's true, it's impossible. And that's why all of this stuff sells. All the most dangerous things in the world, whether it's physical or mental danger, sell. They're the $1 trillion industry. Vapes. All of the studies mean nothing to you because at the end of the day, yeah, it's going to say I'm going to get cancer or going to, God forbid, or get some disease. But right now I'm broken inside. I don't care about what's going to happen in 20 years if I'm broken inside. They have these packages. I don't know if it's in America. I remember in Australia, they have these packages on cigarettes. They have a picture of a lung that looks, basically all gone. So that's supposed to somehow stop a person from smoking. But if you're in that state of mind, you're like, okay, that person has a destroyed lung. I have a destroyed heart. I don't really care right now, It's not really going to change a person. That stream of negativity. So how do you have the counterforce? What's the counterforce to that? What's the counter energy to be able to overcome that? I have the joke of the guy who's reading, this Jew on the train who's reading the anti-Semitic newspaper. So his fellow asks him, what are you doing over here? How are you reading the anti-Semitic newspaper? He says, listen, when I read the Jewish newspaper, they say how bad we are and how miserable life is. And I'm reading this. We run the world and we're making millions of dollars. And that sometimes you need the positive reaction to be fueled from the others, But that's the mentality. We're just living in. We don't have any ability to. How could we even tread water? Without Ceders, there's impossible. It literally is impossible, and it's literally our energy is zapped. I've been asked the question: how do you relax in a positive way? So people think, I need to relax. I come home after a full day of work. So I'm tired. I need my brain to switch off. So what do I do? What do I do? Go on YouTube or scroll or watch a whole bunch of nonsense. So we think we're relaxing. You know what we're really doing? We're actually draining ourselves more. We are. We're draining our minds more to the point that we're more tired out from that than anything else. The biggest proof is we can't move afterwards. But we're physically and mentally drained more. But because it's an escape, because we don't have to worry about the world anymore, we therefore feel like we were relaxed. So today, we don't even relax anymore. The idea of taking a walk and just letting our mind wander within nature and being able to just explore ourselves is totally antithetical to our reality. So where are we getting this positive fuel from? Nowhere. And we're reaffirming it with this constant stream of negativity. And we think we're relaxing. We think we're actually, right? That's what I need. I've heard this from many people. You mean to tell me I shouldn't watch a movie? What if I really need to? I need my brain to shut off. I need to be able to go to sleep. And they're telling this to themselves, and it's 4 o'clock in the morning. It's obvious. We know it. It's like an addiction. What's an addiction? They write and they have AA has a book. They call it the Big Blue Book. So they have it there in the introduction. They explain to you what an addiction is in their terms. So they said Einstein defined insanity as doing something and trying again, hoping for different results. That's an insane person. And an addict does something and tries to and does it again, knowing what the result is going to be. You know exactly what's going to happen. You start, okay, it's right now 11 o'clock p.m. I need to get to sleep by 12, the latest. but I need to shut off my brain. So I'm going to go scroll now on my phone. By the time you turn around, it's 4 o'clock in the morning. You know it's going to happen because you're not resting. You're not shutting down your brain. You're doing the opposite. But you can't, again, you don't know anything else. There's nothing else that can, you mean I should just lay in bed and somehow space out? And then you speak to teenagers when it comes to Shabbos, forget it. That's the world of the ultimate crisis. The Shabbos has become the ultimate devil because it's like, I literally am drained from all my energy because I can't do anything. The boredom is, the rest of the week, you're completely wasting your time. Shabbos, you have the opportunity to maybe explore some truth, some meaningful truth, but instead, you just don't even know what that means because you've been like the shared Hayitztat, and you can be so warply programmed that you can't even begin to appreciate what even truth means, what it really means to relax or to appreciate things. It's people ask me, if God wants us to relax, Shabbos means to relax. Wouldn't God allow me to listen on my phone and watch movies? Because that's what we think is relaxing. It's the antithesis to relaxing. It's the very opposite. You mean I can't text someone to feel good about myself that someone actually is sending me a message? Wow, someone sent me a message. I have to, check it out every 5 seconds and make sure I send back a message. It's part of this warped programming. So what gives us that energy to get out of that state of mind? That's the problem. But what gets us out of that state of mind? So we have an option. Either we can refuel, because again, in this type of world, this endless, these people make trillions of dollars over our unhealthiness. That's basically what it is. They feed it. They had in the opium wars. So the Chinese became addicted to opium because of the English. English were very intelligent in how to get what they wanted. So all the Chinese became addicted on opium, and that was great. That's all it is. It's exactly what it is today. We're all addicted to all this garbage, and so we're all basically. And the thing is that there's more out there. Every once in a while, there's a better one. There's something more. There's more instant wasting time. Instead of watching this, it takes 15 seconds. Now it's only 3 seconds. So the Pashut, we advance to higher levels of wasting time. And so what gives us the energy to change? What gives us that power to overcome all of this? Without Ceders, without being able to tap into a deeper, truer state of mind, a deeper intuitive state of mind, the power of our neshama, our nefesh elokis, it's impossible. It's fighting against schools, education today. Everybody wants, what's the issue with education? So people, there's many problems, but it's very hard to expect a student to give up the phone, which the picture changes every 15 or perhaps every 3 seconds, to a teacher in a classroom who has you expecting to look at a white and black paper. It's just impossible. It's just not possible. We're living in a world that's completely corrupted. So what gives us the power to overcome it? What gives us the energy to do that? Without Ceders, we're lost. So that's where the problem is. But deeper, as I said before, deeper is once you have the ability to really program yourself with your nefesh elokis experience, to be able to recognize that life is a lot more than just going to work and coming home and wasting time on TikTok. There's a meaning, there's a purpose, there's a richness, there's an actual self here that is trying to strive for something more meaningful. So then, yes, we will get triggered. We will want to watch TikTok. We will want to waste time. We will have triggers to things that, and instead of throwing us into this question of who are we and what are we trying to do, we have the confidence, we have the security to tell ourselves, okay, that's the programming of when I was 3, 4, 5 years old, or perhaps 15, 20 years old. And now I'm different. Now I've tapped into a much truer, deeper self of who I really am. And that's Yutas Chav Kislev, at least for me, that's Pada B'Shalom. That's the Maimar and Pada B'Shalom. We have the options. We could live in this miserable life and allow ourselves to go further and further into it, or we could start tapping into the B'diya, the redemption of the soul, to be able to explore and appreciate who we really are and be who we really are. And as the Rebbe explains in these memoirs, there's levels. The first one is just overcoming the nefesh habahamis. Then there's even levels of the nefesh elokis, which is already dealing with higher levels, being able to tap into levels of freeing the nefesh elokis, which is another whole discussion. And then ultimately, it's the ultimate freeing, which is the gula. It's all a buildup. It's all a buildup. But if we overlook the first one, if we don't learn, we speak about this idea of we want Mashiach now and all that, and then how meaningful and how true this is as a yid. This is who we are. This is our identity. But for some of us, we feel disconnected to this idea because, like, right now I'm struggling because I'm on my phone the whole day. So Mashiach is not at all meaningful to me right now. Someone asked me the question, should I still pray for Mashiach every day? I don't appreciate it. I don't know if I want him to come. Meaning we could be at such a state that we don't even begin to appreciate this concept of actual freedom, real freedom, but not even freedom in the sense of, spiritual freedom, just very basic psychological freedom. But that's how corrupted we are. That's how big the struggle is. That's how big the challenge is. So the Pada B'Shalom is on many levels. The highest level is the redemption of the soul on the level of Atzmos, and we're revealing ourselves from the point of who we really are on that level of Etzem, of the fact that we're Chelek L'Kamal Mamish, and that really the nitzutz of Mashiach that's inside of us is going to be exposed and revealed, and we're able to know the truth of who we are on that ultimate deepest level. But to get to that point, there's a lot of things that we have to work through first. There's a lot of levels of refinement. Some of us have worked on it. Some of us, and the truth is, the Rebbe says we've all already gone through it. On a global cosmic level, this all has been gone through. The garbage has been worked through. The refinement has been worked through. But on an individual level, perhaps for some of us, there's a necessity to be able to tap into the realms of Chassidus, to be able to learn Chassidus from that point of view of where it's not just an inspirational vort that I chazer on a Shabbos table. It's not just a sikha that I can chazer or a maimer I can chazer. Something meaningful in my day-to-day life. It's an ability to, like I said before, tap into this positive flow, this ability of knowing who I really am, the true identity of myself, the truth of why I'm here. And as we said before, that's the job of the Rebbe. So the Rebbe gives the Chassidus. That's why the Rabbeim taught us Chassidus. They provide for us the information through Chassidus. But we also need having the Rebbe's guidance more than just learning the Chassidus. We actually have to connect on all the levels the Rebbe told us to connect, which is connection on Machshava Dibra Maisa. We do the Rebbe's Mivtzoyim physically and the Rebbe's Zinyonim. We say the Chitas and Rambam and Machshava. We think about the Rebbe. We connect on spiritually, and whether we write in and we go to the oil. In other words, we have to build the connection on all levels, like a relationship. It's not just that, a relationship is not just that, you hear the guidance. It's living in the relationship. And in that sense, we have to really nurture our development and our connection to the Rebbe. Like the Shulman says, this is what a Rebbe is. This is the truth. This is, if the only way we're going to be disconnected from physicality, the only way we're able to overcome the challenge, the only way we're going to be able to be true to ourselves is when we have a Rebbe. That's the only way. That's the only way, because the Rebbe is that cosmic energy. That's that deep spiritual DNA of who we really are. And without having that in our lives, without attaching to it, without having the ability to be attached to the Rebbe, the Chassidus, and all that, then the Mayim Rabim, as described in the Pasuk of Mishlei, that the Chassidus talks about the deep waters of the physical world, of the temptations and the taivas and all that, just overwhelm us to the point that it doesn't destroy the Ava. We still feel connected on deepest level, but the disconnect senses itself it feels very real. We feel like a nifrit. We feel like someone separate, God forbid, and therefore, Yutes Chav Kislev experience has to be, as the Rebbe Rashab says, that it's a time when we're renewed the energy of the Or V'Chayis Nafshenu to give us life, give us light and life, to be able to live a life of meaningful B'Limut HaChasidus, B'Darkei HaChasidus, because one leads to the other. That when we learn Chassidus, it's not supposed to be just like we said, an academic study or something that would get chazer by the table. Some people feel good because Chassidus provided a lot of speeches for people. So you could come prepared with a good, deep talk about something about life, whether it's, for some, it's on a very Kabbalistic level or mystical level. For others, it's a very psychological level, philosophical level. So this really provided a lot of good talks for people. Even in the Nalabavitch world, even in the Mistanglisha world, perhaps. So this is good because it provides good information, That's not what Chassidus is about. That's not what it really is. There is a point to that, perhaps. Spreading Chassidus on that level is also important, very important. But if it doesn't have the Or Choizer, if it doesn't bounce back into me, I could be a great inspirer to people in learning Chassidus, and I could teach people Chassidus, but if I don't have that resonate back within me for where Chassidus changes my life, So, okay, there is the story, the famous story of the Chassid of the Mittler Rebbe. The Mittler Rebbe made a condition. If you want to come to for Yechidus, you have to say Chassidus while your journey to and on your way back. So there was one Chassid who was a very, very good speaker, and a lot of people enjoyed the way he said Chassidus. And at a certain point, he felt that it was giving him too much ego. It was making him feel too good about himself. And he felt it's doing the opposite of what Chassidus is supposed to do. So he came to the Mittler Rebbe and says, I don't know what to do. I want to come to you, but I don't want to say Chassidus because I feel like it's turning me into a very, disconnected person from the Eibishter. It's making me feel all myself. So the Mittler Rebbe says that that even if you come like an onion, dried out like an onion, or bitter as an onion, you should still say Chassidus. So there is a level of where you're not holding thereby, you're not yet feeling that connection. Chassidus is not affecting you yet. And sometimes through the external talk, through talking to others, that allows it to penetrate deeper into you. As we know, Chassidus talks about that itself, the idea of deeper or penetrating once you talk it out, it could become more powerful. But that doesn't mean at the same time that should be the end all of it. That means you still do it. You have that connection and you still do it. And hopefully you'll be able to work on yourself. And you don't say, because I'm not feeling, I don't do. But the real purpose, the real objective in Chassidus is that how it refines us and it educates us and it empowers us, more importantly. It gives us the ability to be able to fight it. And that's the Libud HaChassidus, because the Libud HaChassidus then leads to the Darkei HaChassidus. Darkei HaChassidus is the way it plays itself out on the real level. It's not just something that we speak about and something we bring about and something that we could even, tell friends about, that we have a good word and people can say, wow, you really, it's deep, it's deep. It has to hit deep and it has to penetrate on the level of action, where it's Darkei HaChassidus, where we actually then go about and people could recognize within us that it's the concept that it's the Serenos, we start off saying that it's something that's our identity. It's not just something that we talked about and something we learned about and something that is perhaps we were deeply affected by in our nurturing, but it's something that now spills itself over in the outside, into the expression, into the action in every aspect we do. So it's tichaseimu, it's tichaseimu on a very, so we wrote it as part of our DNA or as part of our conscious makeup, but we also then identify, others could identify, and we identify ourselves with it. And when we have that identity, and although, as we said before, there's times that there's questions and we struggle and we still have typhus, we're still living within the world of the Nefesh Bahamas and the very, very physical kleshach that we're living in. But we have that deep knowledge that this is who I am and this is what I'm here for and this is what I want to do and this is what I need to do and this is what my ultimate objective is and this is how I feel fulfilled. And finally, to answer the Alter Rebbe's question, how do you be a religious person and be happy? Because we have to redefine what happiness is. Happiness is not feeling good because you could, run around with buzzingness in your body. Happiness is a deep sense of what you're here for. The sense of purpose is real. You could be a father and a husband and feel miserable. Why? Because it's laborious, perhaps. You've been woken up, you're not sleeping enough, you have to be there for your children. It can be very tense work. It can be very, very frustrating work. So where's the simcha in being a father? Where's the simcha in being a husband? Where's the simcha in being a family person or feeling the responsibility? For some people, this is a big challenge because they have the wrong definition of simcha. They think simcha has to be some external joy there's times you have that also. The real simcha is that deep sense that this is me being my father, the father of my children, me being the husband of my wife is really me. This is exactly what I want. This is exactly what I need. This is exactly what I'm here for. And when I have that identity and I'm fully imbuing myself with that knowledge, then I have the ultimate simcha. Not that it's easy. Not that I wake up every day with a joy that I'm like, wow, halavai, but that's not what happens. But it's a deep sense of meaning. It's a deep sense of purpose. And when I have that, and I'm fully aware of that, then I have simcha. Only through a religious experience could you really have simcha, because otherwise you actually feel you're wasting your life. There's no purpose. There's no meaning. So it starts with being a question. How could I be the simcha when I'm going through a religious journey? The answer is that itself gives the simcha. Because when you have the ability to fully appreciate what you're here for, you will sense your nefesh elokis constant interests in discovering godliness in this world and perfecting the world, to make the world a dir of dachainim, and that my job is only to be here for that purpose, then there's nothing greater than knowing that this is your mission, this is your purpose. That's where the ultimate simcha is. And eventually that can lead to experiencing the tainug, the pleasure that's in there as well. But tainug is a different level. That's a different discussion. But just on the basic level of simcha. So l'chaim, when we're dealing with the day of Rosh Hashanah l'Chasidus, Yutes Chav Kislev, Rosh Hashanah is the time, as explained in Chasidus, is the time that we get the renewed energy, as mentioned before. And now that we're already entering into Chav Aleph Kislev, when we have the time to now settle into what our job is for us. And so our job is to make it there, as mentioned, to bring Mashiach and to make this world, use out the world for what it's meant for. Just quickly, an analogy for this, I have this great architect that built this fancy, most magnificent castle. And he put in a whole bunch of different interesting designs and intricate designs. And he left it to see who knows how to use it. And a whole bunch of marauders came in and took over the castle. And they're just completely wasting it away. They're not using it properly. It's just like not being utilized to its perfection, to its fullest. And then a group of people come in and say, hey, you've been missing out on all of the greatness of this castle, of what you can use here. And they start showing you how to use this properly and that properly. And everything becomes so revealed. It showed now the castle is fully functioning on its fullest level. So besides the joy of the people that figured that out and the fact that now they can use it, the joy of the architect is like, wow, now someone is actually using their purpose. Now I feel good. Now I feel like now I can live in the own house that I built for myself. And that's why Ceders also shows us how to use the world. It shows us how God created the world and what the purpose of creation is. So that's our job, is to discover and open up the truth and the depth of reality, to show what the world, the castle, the dira of the world is, and to make it a dira b'tachtonim, to show how everything is designed by God and how God has his imprint on everything and God is living in it. And when we do that, and we're empowered by the positive energy and flow of learning Chassidus, where we learn Chassidus from the place of tapping into our nefesh kiss and making it real, making it conscious, where it becomes the limud to the darkei Chassidus, and it becomes the Chassidus, becomes part of us. And we identify the idea of Shmuel Munka saying what our Rebbe is, the one that guides us and directs us and gives us the ultimate ability to disconnect from all the negative and become part of the positive. That's how we make our personal div tachtenim, our personal p'div v'shalom, the way we're freed on a very personal level, but it brings about the ultimate, as the Rebbe says, from the lowest level of redemption to the highest level of redemption. In the lowest redemption is already contained the highest redemption, which is the Gula Mitzvah Shlema, which we experience it. Take it from me out. L'chaim.
Kama lecha v'sari yeretzia ve'ayet v'limayi Mariama
I'm. Yom Tov. See, sometimes when we say that, we feel like that was good enough to say. In Chassidus, it says, "Hayom yom," that Chassidish crafts a hanocha. When a person like cries out, it's like in a way that's a tshuva in itself. But then there's letters of the Rebbe that explains that sometimes we think because we cried about it, so that's enough. Like now we dealt with the problem, right? We recognize it, that's good enough. But you have to feel better, right? So we gotta become more like, it's important to feel it, and then there's a point to actually then say enough with the feeling. We got to do, because we can live in that feeling for too long. It's sometimes the feeling itself makes us stay there. It's part of the struggle a lot of times. What?
What is in New Mexico with no electricity?
You're saying that's what was brought back to you, huh?
It's great. I would do it again.
See, but that's not the point either. The point is just live in your own, far flung place where you don't have to be attached to this physical world. It's not easy. The point that's running away.
I'm not talking. It was very physical world. It was
Just physical and nice of it.
Going out to try to relax.
Yeah, no, right. From that perspective,
superficial,
right,
external,
right,
entertainment.
Yeah.
I want entertainment and get my guitar out.
Right, 100%. A lot of people miss that out. 1,000%, yeah. We got to make the world.
I had a big argument with somebody at a Russian guy's house. A Russian guy. It's so wonderful to be in America where you can earn money and pay people to do like brushing your teeth, You don't have to do anything yourself. You can people can pay them to do it, and the rate of exchange is so much better like that.
Yeah. Hey, I'm fine.
To have the responsibility to get up at 3 o'clock in the morning so I could be there in time for the cow when she needed to express some milk,
You see, but at the same time, there's the brilliance of the fact that God did make the world now on a plane that we don't need to do all these things, because God wants us to solely focus on our mission. Till then, we had to deal with the cow and all these other things. Now we don't have to deal with the cow, because Hashem wants us to deal with what our real mission, make them there, in the most That's our job. So you got to go out there and spread the light of Chassidus. Expose the
it's shifting gears a little bit. It's the same energy that it takes to milk the cow.
Right.
To be transferred to doing something that's realistic and profitable.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, L'chaim.
Fine.
It's so nice to meet you.
Let me stop. Want to stop this?
Yeah.
A lot of the fans in there.
Oh, wow. No.
And then